Hey guys, tonight we're easing open the screen door on one of the quietest collapses in modern American history. The slow unraveling of the 1970s housewife, waged not with drama but with casseroles, station wagons, and a little yellow pill from the cabinet above the sink. Not with scandal, not with fireworks. No, with edged lawns, spotless mirrors, and a smile held in place by roughly 88 million prescriptions a year. Before we dim the lights, it's just you, me, and a slowly setting gelatin salad tonight. If this is where you come to fall asleep, tap subscribe so you can find your way back, and leave a comment naming which decade you would least like to keep house in. And if you're already lying in the dark pretending your own to-do list doesn't exist, wonderful. You are exactly who this is for, so get comfortable, fan on, blanket up, and maybe set down the glass of wine you started at 4 o'clock, because tonight we don't need it. How did a woman come to own every labour-saving machine ever invented and somehow end up with less free time than her grandmother? Why was the suburb built with no sidewalk leading anywhere she might actually want to go? What her doctor was really writing on that little pad after she said, twice, that everything was fine? Why a book about greeting your husband at the door in a costume sold 10 million copies? Whether anyone ever asked how long she'd been taking those pills? Did she sleep? Did she ever, once, sit down? Congratulations. You just woke up in a quiet subdivision somewhere in America, 1974. Your husband just backed the only car out of the driveway. The percolator is running. The house is spotless. The phone cord reaches the stove, and you have 11 hours and absolutely nowhere to be. Good luck. You are awake before anyone else, and that is not an accident. You are awake because the entire day depends on the house appearing to run itself, and the machinery of that illusion has to be started in the dark. You move through the kitchen in the grey light, setting the percolator, laying out cereal bowls, finding the one shoe that has gone missing overnight. Nobody has asked you to do this. It has simply become understood that the morning arrives already assembled, warm and orderly, as if it grew that way in the night. The percolator is your first collaborator, and it is a temperamental one. You fill it, you plug it in, and it begins its low private conversation with itself, clicking and muttering in the corner like a small appliance with a grievance. It will take exactly as long as it takes. You cannot rush it. You have tried. The coffee is not optional, because the coffee is what makes your husband a person capable of speech. And a husband capable of speech at 7 is the difference between a smooth departure and a tense one. While it works, you work. The bowls go down in the order the children will arrive in, which you know the way a stage manager knows the order of entrances. The cereal boxes are arranged by the loyalties of their owners. The milk comes out of the refrigerator and goes back in twice, because the first child changes his mind about milk roughly every 11 hours. You lay the table like a woman setting a trap for people she loves. Everything must be exactly where a hand will reach for it, so that no one, at any point, has to notice that a hand put it there. This is the whole art of it. The morning is supposed to look spontaneous. The toast is supposed to appear the way weather appears. If you do the job perfectly, the reward is that no one sees the job at all, which is a strange arrangement when you say it out loud. A good performance here is an invisible one. You are the stagehand of your own household, dressed in a bathrobe, running the ropes in the dark so the show can pretend it has no crew. Down the hall, the house is still asleep, and you move through it like a burglar who tidies. You retrieve the lost shoe from under the couch, where it has been conducting a secret life. You gather the homework that migrated to the wrong room overnight. You lower the thermostat's ambition and raise the blinds a careful inch. The floorboard by the stairs announces you, as it always does, a single flat creak you have learned to step around, and this morning you forget to, and it holds its comment for once. Your neighbour, Mrs. Ferris, is doing the identical thing 40 feet away, behind her own kitchen window, and you know this because her light is on too. A small yellow square in the dark, the only other sign of life on the whole silent street. You have never once discussed it. You both simply rise into the same darkness and start the same machinery, two women running two identical illusions, and then wave across the driveways at 8 as though you had both merely woken up refreshed and delighted. By the time the first child stumbles in, rubbing his eyes and radiating the specific injustice of being alive this early, the kitchen is warm, bright, and fragrant, smelling of coffee and toast, and it looks like it made itself. He sits, he eats. He does not thank the room, because the room, as far as he knows, has always been like this and always will be. You pour the coffee. You have been on your feet for 40 minutes, and the day, officially, has not yet begun. The curtain is only now going up. You have already done the hard part, in the dark, where nobody claps. You are running a small, unlicensed cafeteria, and the customers are ungrateful. Eggs for the one who wants eggs. Toast, scraped, for the one who decided overnight he hates butter. A lunchbox packed and repacked because the sandwich touched the fruit. You keep 4 separate orders in your head at once, plus the coffee your husband likes a specific temperature, plus the clock, which is the only customer that never changes its mind. The whole operation has to clear the door by a fixed hour, and it does, most days, through a kind of managed panic that nobody watching would ever call panic. The lunchboxes are their own science, and you are the only one who has studied it. Bobby will eat a sandwich only if it is cut on the diagonal, a preference he holds with the ferocity of a man defending his homeland. Cut it straight across and the whole thing comes home uneaten, a small edible protest, a sandwich returned to sender. So, you cut on the diagonal. You are not a short-order cook because you enjoy geometry. You are a short-order cook because the alternative is a phone call from the school nurse about a child who chose to starve rather than compromise on triangles. Meanwhile, the eggs are happening, and eggs do not wait. Eggs are a window, not a state. There is a period of roughly 90 seconds during which an egg is correct, and on either side of that window lies either raw regret or a grey rubber disc that a 7-year-old will hold up and examine like a coroner. You are watching the eggs, watching the toast, watching the clock, and watching the door for the first sign that anyone has decided today is the day they cannot find their pants. Someone always cannot find their pants. This is not occasional. It is structural, a load-bearing feature of every morning, and you have learned to answer the wail of the missing pants before it fully forms because you know where the pants are. You always know where the pants are. You have a map in your head of every object every member of this family has ever set down, and you consult it dozens of times a day, unpaid, unthanked, and apparently the only person who bothered to draw it. Your husband arrives last, dressed, calm, holding out his cup toward the general direction of coffee, like a man extending an offering to a helpful spirit. He does not see the eggs that were saved at the last second, or the pants that were located, or the diagonal that prevented a crisis. He sees a warm kitchen and a full cup and a family more or less on schedule, and he finds it good, and he is not wrong. He simply mistakes the calm for the weather instead of the achievement. The genius of the operation is that it must never look like an operation. A restaurant lets you see the strain. There is a bell, a shouting cook, a visible line. Here there is only a woman moving smoothly between 4 tasks while making a 5th look effortless, and the smoothness is the entire product. If they saw the panic would become a topic, and a topic at 7:15 makes everyone late. So you swallow the panic and plate the eggs and refill the cup. A serene hostess in a house that has no idea it is being hosted. And then, all at once, it clears. The lunchboxes latch, the shoes go on. The kiss lands on the cheek, brief as a stamp. The door opens and closes and the car starts, and the small ungrateful clientele scatters into the world fed, dressed, and utterly unaware that anything difficult just occurred. You stand in the wreckage of it, the 4 abandoned plates, the toast crumbs, the single sock, the cooling coffee you never actually poured for yourself. The cafeteria is empty. Service is over. You did it again, flawlessly, and the reward is a kitchen you now have to clean before the real work of the day has even started. You watch the car back down the driveway at 7, and with it goes your only way out of the subdivision. There is one car. He needs it. This is not up for discussion, and mostly you do not discuss it, because the logic is airtight, and only the feeling underneath it is the problem. The bus does not come here. The sidewalk, where there is one, leads to another sidewalk that leads to a cul-de-sac. For the next 11 hours you are exactly where you are, and the map of where you can go is the size of the house. The subdivision was designed this way on purpose, and that is the part that gets you when you think about it too long, so mostly you don't. Somebody drew these streets. Somebody sat at a drafting table and decided the roads should curl into loops that go nowhere, that the shops should be a 4-lane road away, that there should be no reason for a stranger to ever walk down your street, and therefore no way for you to walk anywhere either. They called it peaceful. They put it in the brochure. Peaceful, it turns out, is a word that can also mean sealed. The car is not just transportation. The car is the difference between the world and the diorama, and it leaves every morning with the one adult who is allowed to have somewhere to be. You are not stranded the way a sailor is stranded, dramatically, with an island. You are stranded the way a houseplant is stranded, quietly, in a nice pot, with everything it technically needs, and no ability whatsoever to relocate. You do have legs. This is the thing people say, kindly, and it is technically true. You could walk. You have walked, in fact, pushing the stroller along the shoulder of a road built entirely for cars, while the traffic gives you the wide berth people give to something slightly tragic. The grocery store is 2 miles off past an intersection with no light. By the time you got there and back with anything a family could eat, the afternoon would be gone, and the milk would be warm, and you would have proven a point to absolutely no one. Missus. Ferris across the way has the same arrangement, one car gone by 7, and the two of you have developed a whole silent economy around it. When she has the car on a Tuesday, she will knock and ask, casually, as though it were nothing, whether you need anything from town, and you will hand her a short list and a folded bill, and she will do the same to you on the days the arithmetic reverses. It is a small conspiracy of the stranded, 2 women pooling 1 borrowed hour of freedom, and it works, and it is also faintly ridiculous that it has to. The strangest part is how normal it feels from the inside. You do not walk around all day thinking the word trapped, because the word is too dramatic for a life this comfortable. The house is warm, quiet, and comfortable. Nothing is technically wrong. It is only that the boundary of your entire day is a property line, and that the freedom to leave belongs to someone else and returns at 6, and that you have somehow agreed to a life in which going anywhere requires a negotiation, a favour, or a very long walk along a road that was never built with you in mind. So you go back inside. The door closes. The street is silent again, that complete suburban silence that is not peace so much as absence, the particular ring of a house with no one left in it to talk to. You have 11 hours and a property line and a to-do list you could finish in 4. The car is a small shape at the end of the block now, then a smaller one, then gone. You turn from the window and face the enormous flat interior of the day, and you begin, because beginning is the only direction available. You have a problem that does not sound like a problem, which is that there are too many hours and not enough that has to happen inside them. The urgent part of the day left with the car. What remains is a great flat stretch of time that has to be filled, defended, and gotten through, and the filling of it is its own kind of labour. You develop strategies. You break the hours into tasks and the tasks into smaller tasks, and you learn to make a job last, because a job that lasts is a job that keeps the quiet from arriving all at once. The dangerous hours are the middle ones. The morning has momentum, the leftover motion of getting everyone out, and the late afternoon has the countdown, the pull towards 6, and the return of the world. But the middle, the long, soft belly of the day between 10 and 3, has no shape of its own. It is time with the bones removed. You could clean the entire house in that stretch, and still have the stretch left over, looking at you, waiting to be dealt with like a guest who will not take a hint. So you ration the work. You do not, as a sensible person might, do all the cleaning at once and then rest, because rest is the actual enemy. Rest is where the quiet gets in. Instead, you spread 1 hour of chores across 4 hours of doing, polishing a faucet that is already clean, rewashing a floor that did not need it, because the motion is the point, and the shine is only the excuse. A stranger watching would think you are house-proud. You are not house-proud. You are hour-poor, and the house is simply what you have to spend the hours on. There is a specific sound to these hours, and the sound is a refrigerator. When the vacuum is off, and the radio is between songs and no child is home to generate weather, the house produces exactly one noise, a low mechanical hum from the kitchen, the sound of an appliance breathing. It is relentless, the tone the day makes when nothing is happening, and some afternoons you turn the radio up specifically so you will stop being able to hear it. Your neighbour Carol from 2 doors down understands the middle hours, which is why she calls at precisely 11:15 most days, not because she has anything to say, but because saying nothing to another adult is vastly superior to saying nothing to the kettle. The two of you can stretch a conversation about nothing across 20 full minutes. The weather, a recipe, a thing a child did, and it is not gossip and it is not friendship exactly. It is a raft. 2 women treading the same flat water, holding onto a phone cord, keeping each other afloat until the current of the afternoon picks back up. The clock, which was your enemy at breakfast, becomes a strange comfort now, because at least it moves. You find yourself checking it more than a task requires, marking the slow migration of the hands, doing quiet arithmetic about how much of the stretch remains. 3 hours until the children, 5 until the car. You are not wishing your life away, exactly. You are just aware, in a way you would never say out loud, that the best parts of your day are the parts where other people come back, and that the parts that belong entirely to you are the parts you have to survive. And then, around 3, the day grows its bones back. The bus wheezes to the corner. The door bangs. The house fills with noise and demands and the specific chaos of small people who have been storing up complaints since lunch, and you are needed again, urgently, on all sides, and it is exhausting, and it is a relief so total you could almost cry. The middle is over. You made it across. You always make it across. You just never tell anyone how wide the water was. You go to the doctor because you are tired in a way that sleep does not fix, and you do not have better words for it than that. He is kind, and he is fast. He asks how things are at home, and you say fine, because they are fine. That is the confusing part. He nods before you finish. He has seen this before, many times, in many women who look a great deal like you, and by the time you have finished not quite explaining, he is already writing on his pad, and the appointment is essentially over. Doctor. Prentice is a nice man, this has to be said, because it makes the whole thing harder to be angry about. He has a warm handshake and a picture of his own family on the desk and a way of tilting his head when you talk that suggests genuine listening. He is not a villain. He is a busy general practitioner in 1974 with a waiting room full of people, and he has a tool that works, and he reaches for it the way a carpenter reaches for the hammer that is already in his hand. You try to describe the feeling, which is a mistake, because the feeling has no edges. It is not a pain you can point to, it is a flatness, a sense that the days have started running together. A low static that sits behind everything and takes the colour out of it, so that even the good moments arrive muffled, distant, and unreal, as though wrapped in a towel. You say some of this, badly, and you watch him translate it in real time into a word you did not use. Nerves. You are having trouble with your nerves. It sounds so small when he says it, so manageable, like a squeaky hinge. Here is what does not happen in the appointment. Nobody asks what your day actually looks like. Nobody asks whether a person might reasonably feel like static after 10,000 identical hours alone in a silent house with a refrigerator for company. The situation is not on the table. The situation is never on the table. Only you are on the table. And you, it turns out, are eminently treatable. The pad is a marvel of efficiency. He writes without quite stopping the conversation, a practiced diagonal scrawl, and tears the sheet off with the crisp little sound of a problem being solved. He hands it across the desk. He tells you it will take the edge off, help you cope, smooth things out, and every one of those phrases is doing a lot of quiet work, because none of them is the word cure, and none of them is the word why. It will take the edge off. The edge apparently is the diagnosis. The edge is what is wrong with you. You take the paper. Of course you take the paper. You came here tired and unheard and vaguely ashamed of not being able to name your own trouble, and you are leaving with a solution small enough to fit in your purse, prescribed by a kind man who did not raise his voice or suggest anything was seriously wrong. Compared to the alternative, which is going home with nothing and admitting you drove all this way to say you feel bad for no reason, the paper is a mercy. It is a mercy that fits in a pocket. It is a mercy you can refill. And so you walk out into the parking lot holding the answer to a question nobody actually asked, feeling lighter already, which is strange, because you have not taken anything yet. The lightness is just the relief of being given a thing to do. The feeling is a problem now, an official one, with a treatment and a dosage and a follow-up. You have been seen. You have been handled. You will feel better soon. Whether you will be better is a different word entirely, and it was never once mentioned in the room. You take it in the morning, usually, with the last of the coffee, and the ritual is so small it barely registers as a ritual. A pill from the bottle in the cabinet above the sink. Yellow for the 5, blue for the 10. The bottle sits between the aspirin and the vanilla extract, filed under ordinary. Within a while, the edges of the day go soft, and the specific worries that had shapes an hour ago become a general low hum you can work over the top of. This is what it is for. This is what everyone said it was for. The bottle is unremarkable, which is the whole trick of it. It looks like every other bottle in the cabinet. There is no skull on the label, no stern warning in red, no locked box or ceremony. It shares a shelf with cough syrup and baking soda, ordinary household goods, and its ordinariness is a kind of argument. Something this quietly shelved between the aspirin and the vanilla cannot be a serious thing. You would not keep a serious thing next to the vanilla, and so you don't think of it as serious, because the cabinet has already thought about it for you. The pill itself does exactly what was advertised, and this is the part that is genuinely hard to explain to anyone who wants a simple story. It works. 20 minutes after the yellow pill, the static behind everything drops a notch. The children's noise stops feeling like an assault and starts feeling like weather. The flat afternoon loses its teeth. You are not high, not happy, not anything so vulgar as altered. You are just turned down, softened, and dimmed, the way you might turn down a radio that was playing something fine at a volume that was not. There is a word nobody uses, and the word is grief, though that is far too grand a word for what this is. It is more like a tiny daily bargain. Each morning you trade a little of the sharpness of being alive for a little relief from the parts of being alive that hurt, and it is an excellent trade, and it is such a good trade that you make it again the next day, and the next, and the arithmetic of the trade never once appears on any receipt. You are not aware of paying anything. You are only aware of feeling better, which is the most reasonable thing in the world to want. Missus. Ferris takes it, you are fairly sure, from the specific evenness of her, the way she waves across the driveway with a smile that is always exactly the same smile. Half the women you know are, in all likelihood, softly turned down in the same way at the same hour, an entire suburb of women making the same quiet trade over the same last inch of coffee, none of them mentioning it, all of them fine, everyone is fine. The whole street is fine. The fineness hums like a refrigerator. The pill asks nothing of you, which is precisely its danger, though danger is not a word that would occur to you now. It does not demand you change anything. It does not require the situation to improve, the street to open up, the husband to notice, the hours to fill. It simply makes the unchanged situation easier to sit inside, day after day, and in doing so it quietly removes the pressure that might have made you change it. Why fix the room when you can no longer feel the draft? The draft is still there. You have merely stopped shivering, so you cap the bottle and put it back on its ordinary shelf, and you rinse the cup, and you go on with the morning turned pleasantly down. Nothing is wrong. That is what the pill is for. To make sure that nothing is ever quite wrong enough to do anything about, and it succeeds, pill by pill, in the gentlest way imaginable. You will take another one tomorrow. You are not counting. Nobody, at any point in this entire arrangement, is counting. You do the laundry, and then there is more laundry, and this is the whole story and also the entire problem. It is not a task you finish. It is a condition you manage. The basket empties and refills on its own schedule, indifferent to your effort. And the machine in the basement that was supposed to end this has instead made it possible to do it every single day, which means it is now expected every single day. You sort, you wash, you fold, you put away, and somewhere in the house someone is already generating the next load. The hamper is the villain, and it is a patient one. It does not fill dramatically. It fills the way a tide comes in, so gradually that at no single moment can you say the water rose, and then suddenly it is at your ankles and there are 6 loads and a boy with no clean underwear standing in the hall making accusations. You empty it completely on a Monday, triumphant, the wicker showing at the bottom for one glorious hour, and by Tuesday night it has quietly refilled to the brim, fed by socks you did not authorize and shirts worn for 11 minutes and abandoned. The socks deserve their own investigation, because the socks are running some kind of operation. You put in a matched pair, you are certain of it, you would testify to it, and what comes out the other end is a single sock and a sense of grievance. The other sock has gone somewhere. It has joined an organization. Then there is the folding, which is where the real absurdity lives. Folding is the only chore in the house that is undone by the very people you do it for, immediately, on purpose, with joy. You fold a fitted sheet, which cannot truly be folded by any human, and which you wrestle into a lumpy approximation while it fights you like a live thing with opinions about geometry. You stack the small shirts in neat, warm squares, and within a day the squares are gone, torn apart by a child looking for the one shirt at the bottom, and the whole warm order you built dissolves back into the chaos it came from. Your daughter Cindy, who is 9, and helpful in the way of a small tornado, offers to assist, and you let her, because refusing help is its own kind of failure, and because the alternative is explaining why you would rather do it alone. She folds 3 towels into shapes that no longer resemble towels, beaming, and hands them to you like a cat delivering a mouse, and you thank her with total sincerity and refold them the moment she turns around. This is also the job. The job includes making the help feel like help while quietly correcting the help forever, without ever letting on. The genuinely maddening part is what the machine was supposed to mean. Your grandmother did laundry once a week, maybe less, hauling water and boiling it and beating the clothes half to death on a board. And it was brutal, and it was also, crucially, finite. It happened, and then it was over, and the week went on. Your washer does the brutal part in 40 minutes with a comforting hum, and the reward for this miracle is that laundry has expanded to fill the space the miracle created. You do it every day now. The machine did not free you. It promoted you to a job you can never clock out of. So you carry the warm basket up the basement stairs one more time, the good clean smell of it rising into your face, and you begin to put it all away, and you know, with the certainty of the tide, that the hamper upstairs is already refilling as you climb. There is no bottom to reach. There is only the next load, warm and endless and yours, the one chore in the world specifically engineered, so that finishing it and starting it are the exact same motion. You own machines your grandmother would have wept to see, and somehow you have less spare time than she did. The washer, the dryer, the dishwasher, the vacuum, the range that lights itself, each one arrived with a promise of leisure attached, a future in which the house cleaned itself and you sat down. That future never came. What came instead was a rising standard, silent and relentless, that quietly absorbed every hour the machines gave back, so that the floors must now gleam, and the wash must now be daily, and the leisure remains permanently one appliance away. The advertisements are very clear about the deal, and the deal is a lie so cheerful you almost forgive it. A woman in the magazine leans against her new dishwasher in a spotless dress, one hand resting on the machine, the other holding a paperback, her whole posture announcing that she is finished. She is done. The machine did it. She has time now, the ad promises, time for herself, for hobbies, for the leisurely life the modern kitchen has unlocked. You have never once, in years of owning the same machine, achieved that woman's posture. You have never leaned on anything holding a book. Because here is what the ad leaves out. The dishwasher did not remove the dishes from your life. It removed the excuse for a lower standard. When washing every dish by hand took an hour, a family used fewer dishes, reused a cup, let some things slide, and nobody thought less of you for it. Now that the machine does it, using more is free, so more get used, and the load runs daily, and it must be emptied daily, and the standard of a kitchen with 0 dirty dishes in it has quietly become the only acceptable standard, achievable now, and therefore required. The vacuum tells the same story in a different room. Before the vacuum, a rug got beaten on the line once a season, and a swept floor was a clean floor, and that was that. The vacuum made the deep clean easy, so the deep clean became weekly, then a matter of course, and now a carpet with a single visible footprint in it reads as neglect. You run the machine over a rug that was already clean, chasing the one dent your own knee left, because the machine raised the bar it was supposed to help you clear. Even the food conspires. The freezer and the mixes and the range promised quick meals, and quick meals arrived, and the result was not that you cooked less, but that you were expected to cook more variety, more often. To a magazine standard, your grandmother, boiling her one pot, would have found insane. She made the same few things and no one filed a complaint. You are expected to rotate a repertoire, to surprise, to present, because the tools now exist to do it, and a tool that exists is a tool you are apparently obligated to justify by using it to the limit. There was a woman you read somewhere later who studied all of this and gave it a name, the strange truth that a century of labor-saving machines had not saved women any labor at all. Ruth Schwartz-Cowan wrote it down plainly: more machines, more work. The time went somewhere. It did not go to you. It went into the rising standard, into the daily wash, and the spotless floor, and the varied dinner, an entire liberation that somehow left you more tired than before. So you stand in your gleaming kitchen surrounded by the miracles, humming, whirring, and gleaming, and you understand, dimly, that you have been sold a future that keeps receding as you walk toward it. The leisure is always one appliance away. The next machine will do it, the ads say. The next one will finally free you, and you almost believe it, because the last 6 almost worked. The machines are wonderful. They really are. They just quietly ate the very time they promised to hand back, and left the dishes gleaming as an alibi. You plan the grocery trip like a small military operation, because the car is only yours for the window he allows, and everything the family will eat for a week has to be secured inside it. You clip the coupons and clip them by aisle. You keep a running total in your head as you go, because the number at the register cannot be a surprise, because a surprise is a conversation you do not want to have that night. The cart fills. The budget holds, barely. The whole week's survival rides in the back of the station wagon. The list is a document you have been building all week, taped to the refrigerator, added to in the margins, a growing record of everything the house has run low on while you watched. It is not really a list. It is a forecast, a prediction of 7 days of appetites, and if the forecast is wrong, the penalty falls entirely on you, because it is you who will make the second trip you do not have the car for, or you who will produce a dinner out of a cupboard that has betrayed you. So you get it right. You have gotten it right so many times that no one knows it is a skill. The coupons are a part-time job you are not hired for and are not paid for and take entirely seriously. You clip them from the Sunday paper with the focus of a surgeon. You sort them, you match them against the sales. You know that the store puts the lost leaders at the back, so you have to walk past the temptations to reach the bargain. You are not fooled. You have been coming here for years and you have a map of the store's every manipulation, and you walk it like a woman crossing a minefield she personally surveyed, reaching the milk unscathed, saving 40 cents, and telling absolutely no one, because who on earth would you tell? The running total is the real athletic event. Somewhere behind your calm face, a small, tireless accountant is adding every item as it lands in the cart, rounding up to be safe, tracking the number against the folded bills in your purse like an air traffic controller watching a plane come down. You cannot go over. Going over is not a budgeting error. It is a scene, a quiet accounting at the kitchen table where you explain the cost of feeding his children back to him as though it were an extravagance you chose. So the number in your head stays under the number in your purse, always. By a margin you engineer aisle by aisle. Mr. Dolan the butcher knows you, and the knowing is a small daily kindness in a day short on them. He sees you coming and he already has an idea of what you will want, and sometimes he tips his head toward a cut and says, quietly, that this one is better value today, and you take his word because his word has never once been wrong. He wraps it in white paper and marks the price with a grease pencil and hands it across the counter, and for one transaction you are simply a regular being treated well by a professional, which is such a rare feeling that you notice it every time. Then it all comes home, and the unloading is the last act. The heavy bags from the tailgate to the counter to the cupboards, the careful stowing of a week secured. The refrigerator fills, the pantry restocks. For a moment the house is provisioned, stocked and safe, and you can see, laid out on the shelves, the visible proof of a job done right. 7 days of dinners standing in rows like soldiers you personally recruited. It will all be gone by Friday. You will do it again next week, and no one will ever know it was hard, because the whole point, once more, was to make sure it never looked like it was. You are cooking dinner, but you are also, somehow, auditing yourself against a photograph. The magazines have shown you what the table is supposed to look like, and the table in the photograph is glossy and layered and impossibly complete. So the casserole cannot merely feed people, it has to perform. It has to suggest a woman who has her afternoon in hand, who did not open a can of condensed soup and call it a sauce, even when that is exactly what happened. You assemble the dish against the picture, and the picture, of course, never had to actually be eaten. The condensed soup is your dirty secret, and also the secret of every woman on the street, a shared conspiracy so widespread it is barely a secret at all. That silver can of cream of mushroom is the load-bearing wall of the American dinner. You empty it in with a wet, reluctant glug and cover the evidence with noodles and cheese, laundering the can into something that looks like intention. The magazine, meanwhile, is lying to you in full colour, and you know it is lying and it works anyway. The dish in the photograph was built by a team, styled by a professional, sprayed with things to make it glisten, propped with a garnish no family has ever willingly eaten, and photographed under lights hot enough to cook it a second time. It was never dinner. It was an advertisement for a feeling. The feeling of being the kind of woman whose Tuesday casserole looks like that, and you have absorbed the feeling so completely that you now measure your real dinner against a thing that was never food. So you garnish. This is the part that would embarrass you if you thought about it, so you do not. You take the finished casserole, which is fine, plain and honest, and you add a small sprig of something green on top, a flourish aimed at no one, because the family will not notice and would not care, and the only audience for the sprig is you and the photograph in your head. You are plating for a critic who is not coming. You are performing competence for an empty room. The sprig is a message you are sending to yourself about the woman you are supposed to be. Your mother-in-law, Mrs. Ferris's exact opposite in temperament and Cindy's most feared visitor, is the one person who might actually inspect the dish, and she inspects everything. When she comes to dinner, she eats with the slow evaluating attention of a health inspector, and she has a way of saying that a thing is very nice, dear, that lands like a demotion. For her visits, the casserole is not a meal, it is an examination, and you cook it 3 times in your head before you cook it once in the pan, bracing for the very nice, dear. That means you have not yet been forgiven for marrying her son. And then the family sits and eats, and the entire elaborate performance collapses into its true and only purpose, which is that people were hungry and now they are not. The casserole disappears in 8 minutes flat. Nobody mentions the sprig. Nobody detects the can, or nobody says so, which is the same thing. The photograph in your head is not consulted. The children argue about something unrelated, and your husband asks if there is more, and there is, and that is the whole review, the entire critical response to an afternoon of quiet striving, and it is, when you let it be, enough. You clear the plates. The dish that had to photograph well is now a smear in a pan you will scrub, and the magazine is on the counter open to next week's impossible table, already recruiting you for the next performance. You will do it again tomorrow, and the tomorrow after, cooking real food for real appetites while measuring it against a picture that was never real at all. The sprig goes in the trash. It served its purpose, which was nothing, beautifully. You turn on the television not to watch it, exactly, but to have voices in the house. The soap operas run in the early afternoon, and you keep them going while you work, the way you might keep a window open. The people inside the set have enormous problems and beautiful hair, and they speak to each other in a way that no one has spoken to you in days. You follow their marriages and their comas from the ironing board. They are company. They are unreliable company, but at this hour they are the company available. The set warms up slowly, a little glow blooming in the middle of the screen before the picture arrives, and then the organ music swells, that specific dramatic sting that means someone is about to learn something devastating over a rotary phone. You know the sound by heart. It has become the soundtrack of your afternoons, threading through the ironing and the folding, a familiar tide of crisis rising and falling in the corner of the living room, while you do the quiet, unglamorous work. The people on the screen never seem to have to do themselves. Nobody on the soap opera does laundry. This is one of the things you notice, standing there with the iron. These are people with your exact troubles, marriages and money and children who disappoint them, but somehow their houses are spotless without anyone ever cleaning, their meals appear without anyone cooking, and they have entire afternoons free to have affairs and confront their enemies and stand in beautifully lit rooms saying important things. You would like an afternoon like that. You would settle for the lighting. You iron a collar and watch a woman with your problems, and none of your chores agonize gorgeously about a man. The strange thing is how much you come to care, against your own better judgment. You started keeping the set on for the noise, and somewhere along the way you began to actually wonder whether Vanessa would leave her husband, and you catch yourself hurrying a chore to be back in the room for a particular scene. The organ, the tears, the slow zoom on a stricken face, all of it is engineered with total precision to keep you there through the commercial, and the commercial is the actual business of the whole enterprise. Between the heartbreaks, a cheerful woman holds up a detergent, or a floor wax, or a yellow cake mix, and she is having a wonderful time, and the message stitched between the drama is seamless and relentless. Your life could gleam like this, by the wax. The soap opera runs on soap, quite literally, and you are the audience it was built to reach, home, alone, and ironing. at 2 p.m. Carol from two doors down watches the same show, which means the two of you have a shared world now, a set of people you can discuss on the 11:15 call as though they were mutual acquaintances, which in a way they are. Did you see what Vanessa did? Can you believe him? It is the closest thing to a book club the week provides, a small literature you consume in parallel and dissect over the phone cord, and if it is a little absurd to spend real feeling on invented people, it is also, you have quietly decided, less absurd than spending no feeling on anyone at all. Then at 3 the spell breaks, because the bus is coming and the real people are returning, and you cross the room and turn the knob and the glow shrinks to a white dot and vanishes with a small electric snap. Vanessa freezes mid-heartbreak, suspended until tomorrow, and the house goes quiet, and then, in a moment, loud. As the door bangs and the actual plot of your actual life comes stampeding back in demanding a snack. You will find out what happens to Vanessa tomorrow, same hour, same organ. She will wait. She is, in the end, very good company for someone who cannot leave the house. You have a lifeline, and it is beige and mounted to the kitchen wall, and its cord is long enough to reach the stove. The telephone is how the other women in the neighborhood exist for you between the rare times you actually see them. You call while you stir. You call while you fold. A voice on the other end confirms that you are still a person who talks to people, that the day is happening to someone besides you. There are rules about the phone, about the cost of it and the length of it, and you have learned to work inside them. The cord is the great invention, more than the phone itself. Somewhere, a person understood that a woman could not stand still tethered to a wall while dinner burned, and they gave the cord an extravagant length, and it changed everything. Now you can pace the whole kitchen mid-conversation, stretching the coiled line to its limit, stirring a pot, wiping a counter, retrieving a dropped spoon, the receiver pinned between your ear and your shoulder in the specific crick-inducing angle every woman on the street has mastered. You conduct entire friendships one-handed. The cord makes it possible to talk and never once stop working, which is, you note, exactly how everything in your life is designed. The rules are unwritten and iron. Long distance is a sin, tracked to the minute, itemized on a bill your husband reads, so your own mother 3 states away is a rationed pleasure, 10 careful minutes on a Sunday when the rate drops, the conversation eyeing the clock the whole time. Local calls are free, technically, which is why the local women are your true society, Carol and Mrs. Ferris and Peggy from the corner, an entire social world assembled entirely out of people close enough to call for nothing. Friendship, in the suburbs, follows the phone company's pricing. You love who it is free to love. The party line, in some corners still, adds a whole audience you did not invite, a shared circuit where a neighbour might lift her receiver and simply listen, and everyone knows it. So the good gossip travels in code and euphemism, a whole dialect developed to say things over a line that might have ears. You have learned to hear the tiny click of someone joining, the shift in the air of the line, and to go bland instantly, talking about the weather until the click comes again and the ear withdraws. It is absurd. It is also excellent training for a life in which someone is always, in some sense, listening. Peggy from the corner is your emergency line, the one you call when the day has genuinely gone sideways, and she has a gift you treasure, which is that she can tell in 3 words what kind of call it is. A cheerful call gets cheerful Peggy, but when your voice does the small thing it does when you are not fine, she goes quiet, steady, and kind on the other end and simply lets you talk, and does not try to fix it, and does not tell you to count your blessings, and stays on the line past the point of politeness because she has heard the thing under the words. She never mentions it after. That is the other half of the gift. So the phone rings, or you make it ring somewhere else, and the cord uncoils across the kitchen one more time, and a voice arrives to keep you company through the peeling of a pile of potatoes. It is not the same as sitting across a table from a friend. It is what there is. And what there is, it turns out, is enough to get you to 3 o'clock most days, a beige receiver, and a long cord and a woman on the other end who also cannot leave her house. The two of you keeping the silence at bay across the distance you are each, separately, unable to cross. You go to a Tupperware party, and it is the most social thing that will happen to you all week, which tells you something about the week. The living room fills with women you actually know, and there is coffee and there is cake and there is, running quietly underneath the whole afternoon, a transaction. Someone is selling, someone is earning. The plastic bowls with the burping lids are almost beside the point. The real product is the gathering itself, the sanctioned reason for women to be in a room together with a little money changing hands to make it respectable. Dot is the dealer, and Dot is magnificent. She arrives with a case like a travelling salesman and a smile like a lighthouse, and she runs the room with the smooth authority of someone who has found, inside the narrow set of things a housewife is permitted to do, an actual job. She demonstrates the seal, she burps the lid, that soft rubbery exhale, and passes the bowl around so each woman can burp it herself. The genius of the whole arrangement is that it disguises commerce as friendship, and everyone present agrees to be fooled. You could buy a container at the store. You know this. Dot knows this. But at the store there is no coffee, no cake, no circle of women laughing about their husbands, no reason at all to leave your house on a Thursday, and so the party is not really about the bowls, it is about the permission. A woman may attend a party. A woman may not, apparently, simply announce that she is lonely and would like to sit in a room with her friends, so the bowls are the cover story. And the cover story is beloved precisely because everyone needs it. And here is the part nobody says out loud, which is that Dot is making money, her own money, folding money that goes into her own purse and answers to no one. She started as a guest at a party just like this one, and now she has a case and a territory and a little independent income that her husband did not hand her and cannot fully account for, and every woman in the room can see it, and every woman in the room is doing the math. If Dot can, maybe. It is the only visible model any of them has of a wife earning, and it is sitting right there in the living room, burping a lid. You buy something, of course, a medium bowl you do not strictly need, because you cannot attend the party and eat the cake and buy nothing. The purchase is the ticket price for the afternoon, and you carry it home genuinely pleased. 3 hours of feeling like a person among people instead of a stagehand in an empty theatre. The afternoon is warm, loud, and generous. The talk, once the demonstrating winds down, is the real cargo. Women trade the things they cannot say on a party line, the husband troubles and the tired jokes and the small confessions that only land in a room with no men in it. Somebody says something a little too true and the laughter goes on a beat too long, and everyone recognizes it, and nobody names it, and the coffee gets refilled. It is not therapy. Nobody would call it that. But an afternoon of women telling the truth sideways to each other does a quiet work that no pill in the cabinet can, and you leave lighter than you came. Then it ends, and the case snaps shut, and Dot moves on to book the next hostess, and the women scatter back to their separate shut houses with their small gold bowls. The party is over. The permission expires at the curb, but you drive home, or walk home, holding the bowl and the leftover warmth, already thinking about who will host the next one, because the next one is the plan now, the thing on the calendar, the sanctioned little door in the week through which, for 3 hours, the loneliness is allowed out to play. You start a little earlier than you used to, and you have noticed, and you have decided not to make it a thing you have noticed. 4 o'clock is a respectable hour to begin thinking about the evening, and thinking about the evening involves a glass, and the glass takes the edge off the specific dead stretch between the end of the chores and the return of the car. It is what everyone does. The neighbours do it, the magazines assume it. You are careful, and you are alone, and those two facts sit next to each other without quite looking at one another. The cocktail hour is a national institution, and that is the cover it provides. Men come home to a made drink, that is the picture. The wife at the door with a highball and a smile, and so the liquor cabinet is not a secret, it is a fixture, stocked and proud, gin and bourbon and the good glasses. Nobody hides the bottles. Drinking, in this house, is not a vice. It is hospitality. It is sophistication. It is the sound of ice in a glass at the end of a hard day. And all of that respectable machinery makes a very comfortable hiding place for a woman who has begun, quietly, an hour or two before anyone gets home. The first one is medicinal, and you would defend that word. The afternoon has a specific low point around 4, a trough, when the middle hours have worn you flat and the evening rush has not yet arrived to give you purpose. And the drink fills that trough neatly, warmly, and completely, the way the pill fills the morning. In fact, the two are cousins, the yellow pill and the amber glass, both of them quiet chemical answers to the same wordless question, both of them turning the volume down on a life that is a little too loud in all the wrong frequencies. You take the pill from the doctor and the drink from the cabinet, and you do not think about them in the same sentence, ever. The care is the tell. You are careful in the specific way that means you already know. You time it so the glass is washed and the mint is chewed and the whole afternoon is erased before the car turns into the driveway, and you present, at 6, a woman who has simply had a nice ordinary day, and you are good at it, better than you would like to be. The performance you built for the breakfast rush works just as well here. The same serene surface over the same managed chaos, except the chaos this time is inside you, and the audience must never, ever get a look at it. Mrs. Ferris, you suspect, keeps the same hour, from the specific brightness of her 4 o'clock wave, and you have never said a word about it and never will, because the one rule stronger than all the others is that a woman's afternoon is her own business, right up until it isn't. Women's drinking is the great unmentioned thing, done alone, denied cheerfully, invisible by design, and its invisibility is exactly what makes it dangerous, because a thing no one is allowed to see is a thing no one can help you carry. You wave back. Her smile is the same smile, so you know, is yours. So you finish the glass, and rinse it, and set the stage for 6 o'clock, and the evening arrives, and you play your part, and no one is any the wiser, and it was a fine day, a perfectly fine day. Tomorrow the trough will come again at 4, the same trough, reliable as the tide, and you will meet it the same way, a little earlier maybe, careful as ever. It is under control. You are sure it is under control. Being sure is, you will learn much later, one of the earliest symptoms that it is not. You have a second bottle, and this one is supposed to make you smaller. The doctor prescribed it as easily as the first, a bright little capsule to keep the weight off and the mornings sharp, and nobody in the transaction used the word that would later be attached to it. So now there is one pill to speed you up and, come night, another to bring you down, and the arc of your day runs on a chemistry you did not design and do not fully understand. Up in the morning, down in the dark, managed, expertly, by a man with a prescription pad. The diet pill is cheerful in a way the tranquilizer is not. Where the yellow pill turns the world gently down, this one turns you brightly up, and for the first hour or two you are a marvel, scrubbing the baseboards at a speed that alarms the cat, talking faster on the phone, cleaning things that were already clean with a new and slightly frantic joy. You get so much done. That is the seduction of it. On the diet pill you are finally the woman in the appliance advertisement, energetic, gleaming and unstoppable, and you do not question the source of the energy any more than you question the source of the calm. The pills come in colours, which is somehow the most sinister detail, a whole rainbow of them, and the cheerful palette does a lot of quiet work in making them feel like candy rather than amphetamine. They are prescribed for weight, purely for weight, because a wife owes her husband a figure, and the magazines run the numbers on you monthly, and so the pill that keeps you thin is filed, like the tranquilizer, under ordinary maintenance, the upkeep of a woman, no more remarkable than lipstick. In fact, it is speed, plainly and simply, dispensed by the family doctor with a smile, and nobody in 1974 is saying that out loud in your kitchen. The trouble is the shape of the day the two pills build between them. The bright capsule gets you moving in the morning and burns clean through by afternoon, dropping you into a jittery flat crash right around, of course, 4 o'clock, right into the trough where the drink is waiting, and the tranquilizer and the drink then bring you the rest of the way down for the night. Down and down into a sleep that is more like a shutdown, so that you wake needing the bright capsule just to climb back out. Up, crash, down, out, and up again. You are not living a day so much as riding one, and you did not build the ride. Your sister, visiting once, watched you go through a whole afternoon of this without knowing what she was watching, and said, lightly, that you seemed a little wound up, dear, and then a little far away, and then asked, careful, if you were sleeping all right. You laughed it off. You are a champion at laughing it off. But the question stayed with you, because your sister had seen, in a single afternoon, the outline of a thing you had been carefully not seeing for months, the two bottles quietly running you in opposite directions, the pharmacist restocking both without comment, the whole managed chemical arc of you. So you take the bright one with the coffee, on top of the yellow one, or before it, the order varies, and you launch into the morning at a speed that will feel wonderful for exactly as long as it lasts. The baseboards will gleam, the cat will hide, and somewhere past noon the launch will run out of fuel and drop you, gently at first and then not, toward the trough and the glass and the long, slow chemical night, the whole ride starting over tomorrow, coloured like candy, prescribed like medicine, running you ragged in the brightest possible way. You clean a house that is already clean, because clean is not a state you reach, it is a performance you sustain. The surfaces get wiped whether or not anyone touched them. The mirror gets the treatment. The whole place has to hold a certain shine, a readiness, in case someone arrives, in case someone looks, in case the standard walks in the door wearing your mother-in-law's face. You are not cleaning dirt so much as you are cleaning the possibility of judgment, and that possibility, unlike dirt, is genuinely never finished. The smell of the house is a manufactured thing, and you are its manufacturer. Lemon mostly, that sharp aggressive citrus that no lemon ever actually produced, sprayed onto wood that was not dirty until it gleams and announces itself. A clean house, you have been taught, has a smell, and the smell is not the absence of odour but the presence of the right one. So you spray and you wipe and you fill the rooms with chemical lemon, the scent of a woman who is keeping up, and the scent becomes so constant that you stop smelling it and only notice, with alarm, on the rare day it is missing. The mirror is the great tyranny, because a mirror shows fingerprints the way a confession shows sin. Children have hands, and hands have oils, and every surface at child height in your house wears a faint gallery of small, greasy prints that appear the instant after you clear them. You could clean the low half of every mirror in the house hourly and never win, and some days you nearly try, chasing the prints with a rag and a spray bottle, waging a small doomed war against the simple fact that people live here, and people are, unforgivably, made of hands. The mirror stays wiped, bright, and briefly perfect. The genuinely strange part is who you are cleaning for, which is no one, which is everyone. Almost nobody comes. Days pass without a single visitor crossing the threshold, and still the house is held at a state of constant readiness for a guest who does not arrive, because the readiness is not really about guests. It is about the judge you carry in your own head, assembled over years out of your mother and the magazines and every woman who ever glanced at your baseboards, a permanent internal inspector who sees the house even when it is empty and files a report even when no one is there to read it. The specific horror is the drop-in, and there is a champion of the drop-in, and her name is your husband's mother. She does not call ahead, on principle, because calling ahead would give you time to prepare, and preparation, she believes, conceals the truth of a house. So she simply appears and runs one finger along the top of a door frame where no sane person cleans, and examines the finger with the grave attention of a jeweller, and this single gesture, performed perhaps twice a year, is the reason you dust the tops of the door frames every single week. She has trained you like a bell trains a dog. She is barely ever there. She does not need to be. So you wipe the counter one more time, the counter that was clean, and you catch your own reflection in the dark window over the sink. A woman with a rag doing a thing that does not need doing, and for one flat second you see it clearly, the whole absurd performance, the readiness for no one, the war on hands, the door frames dusted for a woman who visits twice a year. And then the second passes, because seeing it clearly does not make it stoppable, and you spray the lemon, and the house shines for the judge in your head, who is, as always, the only one watching. You are the head of a small republic of people who did not vote for you and do not appreciate you, and they are between 4 and 11 years old. They need feeding, refereeing, wiping, and returning to whatever institution is currently responsible for them. They lose things you find. They fight wars over territory the size of a couch cushion. They assume with total serenity that the house feeds and cleans itself while they sleep, and your entire job is to maintain that assumption, because the moment they see the machinery they will only ask why it is running late. Bobby, who is 7, operates on a system of fierce and shifting principles that only he can track. Last month he would eat only foods that were white. This month he has a strong moral objection to his own bedtime, which he argues against nightly with the stamina of a trial lawyer and the logic of a man defending a fort. You are his opponent in roughly 40 small negotiations a day, most of which you win, all of which cost you something, and none of which he will remember, because to Bobby you are not a person he negotiates with, you are the weather he negotiates against. Cindy, who is 9, has entered the age of helping, which is more work than not helping and cannot be refused. She wants to crack the eggs, and she cracks them with enthusiasm and a generous quantity of shell. She wants to carry the plates, and your good nerves ride every trip across the kitchen. You supervise her help with a smile so fixed it aches, correcting nothing out loud, praising everything, because the goal is not a well-cracked egg. The goal is a girl who grows up believing she is capable, and you will pick shell out of the bowl for a decade to protect that belief. The refereeing is constant and thankless, and requires the instant judicial reflexes of a woman who has heard every possible variation of "he started it." 2 children and 1 desirable object is a physics problem with no solution, and you are called upon, dozens of times daily, to adjudicate disputes over a specific chair, a specific cup, the exact center of the back seat, the last of a cereal that neither wanted until the other reached for it. You hand down rulings. They appeal every ruling. The court is always in session, and the judge is never off the clock, and the litigants believe, sincerely, that you are biased against whichever of them is currently losing. The part that would undo you if you let it is the pure animal ingratitude of it, and you do not let it, mostly. They come to you only when broken or hungry or wronged, treat your presence as a permanent fixture of the universe like gravity, and save all their charm and best behavior for their teacher, their grandmother, literally anyone who is not you. To be a mother is to be the person a child is safe enough to be awful to, which is a profound and beautiful thing when you read it in a magazine, and a considerably less beautiful thing at 5 p.m. when the awfulness is being deployed at volume in a supermarket. So you feed them and referee them and locate the lost things and lose a little of yourself into the endless day of it, and at night, when they are finally asleep and briefly perfect, you stand in a doorway and look at them and feel the whole exhausting love of it wash back over you, clean and total. Then you go pick up the toys. There are always the toys. You gather the small, ungrateful Pharaoh's treasures off the floor one more time, and you are tired in a way sleep does not fix, and you have a bottle in the cabinet for exactly that. You have read that you are supposed to greet him at the door, and so tonight you are attempting it. The book was very specific. There is a whole philosophy now, sold by the millions, about the arrival home being a moment you can win or lose, and losing it, the book implies, is on you. So you fix your face and fix your hair, and you are standing there, arranged, when the car comes back at 6. What happens next is supposed to be gratitude. What actually happens is that he is tired too, and wants his dinner, and does not know he is being greeted. The staging takes real work, which the book does not mention. You have to time it exactly, listening for the specific grind of the garage door, so that you are at the front hall composed, poised, and radiant at the precise moment of his entry, and not, say, discovered sprinting toward it from the kitchen with a spatula. You have herded the children into a temporary and unstable peace. You have hidden the wreckage of the afternoon. You have applied fresh lipstick over the day's worn one, a small flag of effort raised for an audience of 1, and you stand in the hall arranged like a woman in a doorway in an advertisement, waiting to be walked into like a scene. He walks into it, and the scene does not land the way the page promised. He is carrying his own day on his back, the office and the commute and whatever went wrong that he will not talk about, and he crosses the threshold already halfway to the couch, and the vision of you waiting registers somewhere below his conscious notice, filed under normal. Under, of course. There is no swelling music. There is a distracted kiss aimed at the general area of your cheek, and a question about whether dinner is close, and then he is past you and into the house, and the greeting you staged for 20 minutes is over in 4 seconds, and he does not know it happened. The book, you realize standing there with your bright, unnoticed lipstick, has sold you a transaction that only works if the other party knows he is in it. The whole scene depends on his gratitude, and gratitude cannot be staged from your side alone. It has to be given from his, and he has not read the book and would be baffled to learn there was a performance and would feel, if you explained it, vaguely accused. So you cannot even collect the small reward the effort was for, because naming the effort would spoil the very thing the effort was meant to produce, which was the appearance of effortlessness. Maribel Morgan sold 10 million copies of this idea, which tells you the loneliness it speaks to is not yours alone. Somewhere out there 10 million women are timing their lipstick to the garage door, staging arrivals for distracted men, following numbered steps toward a marriage that the book swears is one costume away from rescue. You are not foolish for trying it. You are a woman who was handed a manual promising that the growing distance in your house was a problem you could fix single-handed with enough effort and the right outfit. And you wanted, badly, for that to be true, because if it is true, then it is fixable, and if it is fixable, then it is not simply the shape of your life. So you go and put dinner on the table, lipstick and all, and he eats it and thanks you the ordinary amount, the amount he would have thanked you without any of it, and the arranged doorway and the timed entrance and the whole choreographed rescue dissolve into a perfectly normal Tuesday evening. The book is on the nightstand upstairs with your place marked in it. You will try again, probably, because trying is at least a thing to do with the distance, more bearable than simply watching it grow. The lipstick at least was nice. Somebody should have seen it. Somebody, the book insisted, was supposed to. You keep a book on the nightstand that promises to fix your marriage in numbered steps, and you are trying to follow it, which is harder than it sounds. It reads like a manual for a machine you are also a part of. Cater to his quirks. Anticipate his moods. Treat the household as a project with yourself as both the manager and the raw material. You underline the parts that seem important. You attempt the exercises. The book is very confident, and its confidence is soothing, right up until the moment you try to actually live inside one of its sentences. The book's central promise is intoxicating precisely because it is so total. It says, in effect, that the happiness of your entire home rests in your hands, that a wife who applies herself correctly can transform a distant husband into an adoring one, a tense house into a warm one, a tired marriage into a honeymoon, all through her own effort and attitude. This is meant to be empowering, and for a chapter or two it genuinely feels that way. The thrilling idea that you are not stuck, that you hold the controls. It takes a while to notice that the same promise, turned over, means that everything wrong is also, entirely, your fault. The exercises are specific and slightly humiliating, and you do them anyway. Admire him, the book says. Find things to praise. Greet him with enthusiasm. Keep yourself attractive. Never greet him with your problems. You are to be endlessly warm, available, and interested in his day, and to save your own difficulties for a moment that the book strongly implies should be never. You practice the admiring. You bite back the problems. You perform the enthusiasm, and some evenings it even helps a little, and the little help is the hook, because the little help proves the system works, and therefore that any larger failure is a failure of your application, not the system. What the book never once suggests is that he might have a chapter 2. There is no companion volume on the nightstand instructing him to anticipate your moods, to admire you, to save his bad day for later and greet you with enthusiasm at the end of yours. The entire labour of the marriage, in the book's confident arithmetic, is assigned to one side of the bed, and the other side is treated as a fixed condition, a weather system to be accommodated rather than a person who could be asked to change. You are the variable. He is the constant. The book does not argue this. It simply assumes it, so thoroughly that you almost do too. You try to picture handing him the book, and the picture is comedy. You imagine your husband Ray reading a chapter titled, How to Make Your Wife Feel Cherished, and the image is so absurd that you actually laugh alone in the kitchen, and then the laugh curdles a little because the absurdity is the whole point. It is unthinkable that he will handed such a book. The very idea is a joke, and the fact that it is a joke, that a manual of marital effort aimed at a husband is inherently ridiculous while the same manual aimed at a wife sells 10 million copies, tells you something about the arrangement that the book itself will never say. The book goes back on the nightstand with your place marked, and you turn out the light, and beside you Ray is already asleep, untroubled, unaware there was ever a project underway with him at the centre of it. You lie there, having done your exercises, having admired and anticipated and withheld, a good student of a course only, you are enrolled in. The book is confident you are on your way to a transformed marriage. You are fairly sure you are on your way to sleep, with a little help from the cabinet, having spent one more evening being both the manager of the machine and the part it wears down. You read the women's magazine at the kitchen table, and by the time you finish it you have been given 2 completely incompatible sets of instructions and no way to obey both. One article wants you thinner and more available. The next wants you fulfilled and awake to your own worth. An advertisement between them wants you to buy something that will resolve the contradiction, and you almost believe it. The magazine has no idea it is arguing with itself. It simply prints the argument, month after month, and mails it to your house, where you are expected to somehow win it. The magazine arrives glossy and thick and genuinely welcome, because it is one of the few things that comes for you, addressed to your name, a small monthly acknowledgement that you exist as a reader and not only as a function. You look forward to it. You save it for a quiet moment, coffee at the table, the children at school, and you open it the way you would open a letter from a friend, and the friend, it turns out, has completely lost track of what she told you last time. Page 11 is a diet, urgent and specific, promising that £10 stand between you and a happier marriage. Page 19 is a recipe for a chocolate cake so decadent the photograph is practically illegal, and you are to bake this cake, obviously, for your family, who deserve it. Page 26 wants you to be a more exciting wife. Page 34 wants you to be a more patient mother, which requires a calm the exciting wife would find boring. Every page is sincere, every page is an order, and the orders do not survive being read in sequence, because obeying any one of them puts you in direct violation of the one before it. The advertisements are the truly diabolical part, because the advertisements have noticed the contradiction and figured out how to sell into it. Here is a product for the exhaustion the magazine is causing. Here is a cream for the aging the magazine is frightening you about. Here, between the article telling you to do more and the article telling you to be more, is a thing you can purchase that promises to bridge the impossible gap. And in your more tired moments, you reach for the coupon because the ad is the only voice in the whole magazine that admits the gap exists, even if only to sell you a bridge over it. And then, every so often, a single article appears that does not fit the others at all, that seems to have wandered in from a different and more honest magazine. An essay, buried past the recipes, about the housewife's moment of truth, about the quiet dissatisfaction of women who have everything and feel hollow, and you read it standing very still, because it is describing you, plainly, in the same publication that told you on page 11 to lose £10. The magazine contains its own critique and does not notice. It prints the disease and the cure and 3 advertisements in between and mails the whole contradiction to millions of kitchens, yours among them. So you close it, eventually, this month's Impossible Woman, and you set it on the pile with the others, and you carry a low new confusion into the afternoon, having been instructed by the one piece of mail that came for you to be 6 things at once that cancel each other out. The buried honest essay stays with you longest, the one that named the hollow feeling, and you find yourself wanting to read it again, and then wanting, more than that, to read a whole magazine written by whoever wrote it, a magazine that told the truth on every page instead of once by accident. You do not know yet that such a magazine is coming. For now there is only this one, glossy, shrill, and contradictory, already recruiting you for next month's version of the impossible. You go to a meeting that is not a party and not a committee, and at first you do not know what it is. Women sit in a circle in a living room and take turns saying true things out loud, and the true things are almost exactly the true things you have been carrying around, assuming you were the only one. Nobody is selling anything. Nobody is fixing anything. Yet. They are just naming it, going around the room, and the naming does something to the air that you were not prepared for and cannot quite undo afterward. Linda hosts it, and Linda is not like Dot at the Tupperware party, all bright commerce and burping lids. Linda pours the coffee and then sits down and asks a question, one plain question about how the week actually felt, and then she does the hardest thing, which is to be quiet and let the silence stretch until someone fills it with something honest. There is no product. There is no agenda taped to the refrigerator. There is only a circle of women and a question with no correct answer, which is, you realize, a shape you have never once encountered in your adult life. The first woman speaks carefully, testing the water, and says something small and true about being tired in a way that sleep does not fix, and you nearly drop your cup because those are your words, the exact words you could never find at the doctor's office, coming out of a woman you barely know. And then the next woman nods, hard, and adds hers, and the next, and it goes around the circle gathering weight. And the thing you had privately diagnosed as a defect in yourself is sitting in the middle of the room, revealing itself to be a defect in the arrangement, shared by every woman present. Nobody uses big words for it. Somebody says she loves her children and also sometimes sits in the car in the driveway for 10 extra minutes before going in, and the whole circle exhales at once, because every one of them has sat in that car. The private shames turn out to be a common language nobody knew they all spoke. The relief is physical and a little frightening. You came in carrying a weight you had always assumed was yours alone to carry, a personal failure of gratitude, and over 2 hours the room quietly informs you that the weight is standard issue, handed to every woman in the circle along with the wedding china. This should feel like bad news, and instead it feels like the first full breath in years, because a private defect is a life sentence and a shared condition is something you might, conceivably, do something about together. Out loud. There is a cost, though, and you feel it on the drive home, a door that will not close again now that it is open. You cannot unhear the other women. You cannot go back to believing the feeling was only yours and only your fault, which was, in its terrible way, a more manageable belief, because it asked nothing of the world and only more effort of you. Now you know it is not just you, and knowing that is the end of a certain kind of peace, the peace of the person who blames herself, because blaming herself at least feels like control. So you drive home from Linda's changed in a way you cannot yet explain to Ray, who will ask how the coffee thing was and accept fine as an answer. The living room is behind you and the closed house is ahead, but something has been let loose in the space between them that will not be gathered back up. You have said the true thing in a room full of women and heard it said back, and the pill in the cabinet will still turn the volume down tonight, but it can no longer convince you that the noise was ever coming from inside you alone. You maintain the exterior with the diligence of a stage crew, because the front of the house is a statement, and the statement has to hold. The lawn is edged, the welcome mat is clean, the curtains hang the way curtains are supposed to hang in a house where everything is fine. The neighbours read all of this fluently, the way you read theirs, and the reading is constant and unspoken and slightly ruthless. What matters is not that things are fine, but that things appear fine from the street, and the street, it turns out, is always looking. The lawn is the great public scorecard, and everyone on the block keeps score. A brown patch is not a horticultural problem, it is a character reference, a small yellow announcement that something in that house is slipping. So the sprinkler runs on its schedule and the edges get trimmed to a crispness no lawn needs, and Ray mows it on Saturdays in stripes, and the whole ritual is less about grass than about broadcasting to a street that is always watching that this is a household that has itself together. You read the other houses just as closely, and you are ashamed of how closely, but you do it anyway. A garbage can left out a day too long. A car in the driveway on a Tuesday when the husband should be at work. Christmas lights still up in March. Each small deviation gets noticed, filed, quietly discussed on the phone, folded into the running neighbourhood assessment of who is keeping up and who is beginning, ever so slightly, to fray around the edges. It is a homeowners association without the paperwork, and the only penalty for a code violation is that everyone knows. Mrs. Ferris and you have a truce built on mutual visibility. You each know the other's front is a front, because you each build one every morning, and so you extend each other the specific mercy of pretending to believe it. Her lawn is perfect, and you know what it costs. Your curtains hang right, and she knows what it costs. Neither of you will ever say so, because saying so would collapse the whole arrangement that lets both of you keep standing, so you wave and admire and lie gently to each other across the driveways. The cruelty of it is that the surface is exactly where the trouble hides. The house with the most perfect lawn on the block might hold the most desperate afternoon, because the effort that goes into the front is effort stolen from somewhere, and the woman whose exterior is flawless is often the woman working hardest to keep anyone from looking past it. You know this because you are, some weeks, that woman edging the lawn with particular care on precisely the days the inside is falling apart. The front's democked-edged, green, and eloquent. So the whole street performs its wellness at each other, a block of women each maintaining a flawless front for an audience of other women maintaining flawless fronts, nobody fooled, nobody willing to be the first to drop the act. It is exhausting, and it is protective at once, a shared agreement to be judged only on the surface, because the surface is manageable and the depths are not. And a neighbourhood that only reads lawns is a neighbourhood where your afternoon stays your own business. You finish sweeping the walk that was not dirty, and you straighten the mat and step back to check the house the way a stranger driving by would see it, and it passes, it always passes, a tidy home on a tidy street with nothing at all wrong. Then you go back inside, where the actual life is, the one the street will never grade, and you carry the front you built like a coat you cannot take off, because tomorrow the street will look again, and the statement, once made, has to be maintained forever. You are on a committee, several committees, and you do not remember agreeing to any of them so much as failing to get out of the room fast enough. The bake sale needs someone, the class trip needs a chaperone, the church needs the flowers arranged and the phone tree activated. All of it is unpaid, all of it is expected, and all of it is filed under the general heading of what a woman with time on her hands is naturally glad to do. You do have time on your hands. That is not the same thing as having it to spare. The recruiting is a soft art, and you are its favorite target. Nobody asks you directly, because a direct ask can be directly declined. Instead, someone mentions, at pickup, how wonderful it would be if the bake sale had a real organizer this year, and looks at you warmly and lets the silence do the work, and you hear yourself volunteering the way a person sleepwalks, already regretting it, already calculating the hours. It is not that you cannot say no, it is that saying no marks you, quietly, as the woman who would not, and the marking follows you down every school hallway for a year. Mrs. Pratt runs the PTA the way a general runs a campaign, and Mrs. Pratt has identified you as reliable, which is the worst thing you can be. Reliable means the jobs flow toward you by natural law, because Mrs. Pratt has learned that you will actually do the thing, thoroughly, on time, without being chased, and this competence is not rewarded with rest, it is rewarded with more. The women who do a slapdash job get quietly relieved of duty. The women who do it well get promoted into an unpaid career they never applied for. The bake sale itself reveals the whole economy in miniature. Dozens of women bake, from scratch, at home, for hours, and bring the results to a folding table in a gym, where the entire massive volunteer labour of a whole community of women is sold to raise a sum that a single modest cheque from the district could have covered without anyone losing a Saturday. The money was never really the point. The point was the women, organised, busy, and contributing. Their labour made visible in brownies precisely because it is invisible everywhere else. There is a real pleasure buried in it, and you would be lying to deny it, because the committee room is one of the few places your competence is witnessed by other adults. The volunteering exploits you, and it also, cruelly, feeds a hunger the exploiting created. The simple hunger to be good at something in front of someone. Reverend Wick thanks the ladies from the pulpit on Sunday. A warm collective thank you to the ladies who make everything run, and the whole row of you smiles and accepts it. The ladies, a single grateful lump, and nobody's name is said. That is the deal, laid bare in one sentence. Your labour keeps the school and the church and the neighbourhood physically functioning, and in exchange you receive a plural thank you aimed at no one in particular, warm and total and completely without a name attached, and you take it because a plural thank you is more than the kitchen offers. So you sign up for the next thing, because the next thing is already being mentioned in your direction with that warm expectant look, and because the alternative is the empty afternoon and the refrigerator hum, and a committee is at least a reason to leave the house and be needed by name, or nearly by name, by someone. You carry home the folder for the spring carnival. It is one more unpaid job you did not quite choose. It is also, and this is the trap, one more place you get to matter, and you are so hungry to matter that you will take it on those terms. You go to the pharmacy to renew the prescription, and the astonishing thing is how little anyone asks. The bottle comes back full, the count resets. No one at the counter wonders aloud how long you have been on it, because how long you have been on it is not a question the system is built to ask. The refill is automatic, ordinary, the same as picking up more of anything you have run low on. You have been taking these for longer now than you can casually remember, and the machinery around you treats that fact as no fact at all. Mr. Cole, the pharmacist, knows your name and counts the pills into the bottle with a small practice scoop, and it never once occurs to him, or to you, to treat this as anything but routine. He counts pills for half the street, an entire neighbourhood's worth of the same yellow pill passing across his counter, and if he has ever added that up, he has kept the sum to himself, because adding it up is not his job, filling it is. The refill has no memory, and that is its quiet danger. Each time is the first time, as far as the system is concerned. There is no counter anywhere that lights up after the 40th month, no gentle question that surfaces when a prescription for a temporary case of nerves has quietly run for 3 unbroken years. The doctor renews it by phone without seeing you, the pharmacist fills it without comment, the insurance pays it without a flag. Every link in the chain does its small ordinary part, and no link is responsible for the whole, and the whole is a woman who cannot remember the last month she was without it. You do the math once, standing at the counter, almost by accident, and the number startles you. You count backward, the doctor, the first bottle, the tired winter it began, and the years stack up in a way they never do when you are only living them one refill at a time. It has been a genuinely long time, and nothing about the smooth, easy refill reflects that. The bottle looking exactly as innocent as the very first one, priced the same, shelved the same, handed over with the same warm nothing of a smile. Nobody framed it as forever. That is the thing you keep circling. At the very start, it was a small, temporary help for a rough patch, a few weeks, a bridge. No one ever sat you down and said this may become permanent. This may become something your body organizes itself around. This may become harder to stop than it was to start. The word dependence was never spoken in any room you were in, not by the kind doctor, not by the warm pharmacist, not by you, because you had no reason to reach for a word that describes a thing everyone around you is treating as ordinary maintenance. The smoothness is the whole trap you are beginning to sense. A dangerous thing announces itself. It has warnings, locked cabinets, alarming labels, a sense of occasion. This has none of that. This is the easiest transaction in your week. A warm nod and a full bottle and out the door. And the very ease of it is what has let it run for years without anyone, at any counter, ever pausing to ask the one question the whole friendly system was designed not to ask. So you take the bottle and thank Mr. Cole and drop it in your purse beside the coupons, ordinary among ordinary things, and drive home with a month's supply of a thing you have stopped noticing you take. The refill is done. It stays smooth, cheap and unremarked. It will be done again next month, and the month after, smooth and easy and unremarked, the count resetting each time to full as though the clock had never been running. You are not worried. There is no moment built into any of this that invites you to worry. That, though you cannot see it yet, is precisely the problem. You decide on some ordinary morning to simply not take it, and you discover that simply not taking it is not simple at all. By afternoon, your skin does not fit right. The low hum you had learned to work over the top of comes back louder than it ever was before the pills, sharpened somehow, as if it had been waiting and lifting weights. Your hands are not steady. Nobody warned you about this part, because nobody in the whole friendly chain of prescriptions and refills ever framed the little yellow pill as something a body could come to need. The morning starts fine, which is the cruel trick of it. You skip the pill with a small private pride, a woman taking herself in hand, and for a few hours you feel only virtuous. Then, gradually, the world begins to lose a layer of insulation you did not know had been installed. Sounds get an edge. The children's ordinary racket lands like an attack. The refrigerator hum, your old companion, becomes unbearable in a specific new way, and you realize the pill had not only been softening your feelings, it had been softening the actual volume of the day, and you have just turned the dial back to a setting you have not lived at in years. By afternoon, your body has opinions, and it is expressing them. Your hands have a fine tremor that makes the coffee cup chatter against the saucer, a small betraying rattle you hide by setting the cup down. There is a headache arriving from somewhere behind your eyes and a nausea underneath it and a rising jangling wrongness in your chest that has no cause you can point to, no bad news, no crisis, just a body that has been quietly reorganized around a chemical and is now filing an urgent complaint about its absence. You are not sad. You are in withdrawal, though you do not have that word yet either. The body goes jittery, wired and strange, a small mutiny below decks negotiating hard for the return of its captain. The genuinely frightening part is the anxiety, because it is not ordinary worry, it is worry with the brakes cut. The pill, you understand now, had been the brakes, and without it the smallest concern accelerates instantly into dread, the unpaid bill becoming ruin, the child's cough becoming catastrophe, the ordinary friction of a Tuesday becoming a sourceless terror that sits on your chest like a cat claiming its spot and will not be reasoned with. This is worse, measurably worse, than anything you felt on the tired winter morning that first sent you to the doctor. You went in with a low grey flatness. You are being handed back something with teeth, and so of course you take one. What else would you do? By 4 o'clock the wrongness has built past the point of principle, and the bottle is right there on its ordinary shelf, and you shake one out with hands that are grateful and ashamed at once, and 20 minutes later the volume drops and the brakes come back, and the world reinstalls its missing layer, and the relief is so total that it frightens you more than the withdrawal did, because now you know. The pill is no longer taking the edge off your life. The pill is now the thing that keeps away the specific hell of not having the pill. So you cap the bottle with steadier hands, and you do not tell Ray, who noticed nothing, and you do not tell the doctor, who would only renew it, and you carry the new knowledge around inside you like a stone you swallowed. You are not free to stop. That is the plain fact the afternoon delivered. You can keep taking it and stay level, or you can stop and be dragged through that. And there is, as far as you can see from here, no third door, no gentle off-ramp, nobody in the whole friendly system who ever built one, because the system was designed to get you on, and simply never gave a single thought to getting you off. You are reading a novel that a friend pressed on you, and 30 pages in you have to set it down, because it is describing the inside of your head with an accuracy that feels like an intrusion. It is about a bright young woman coming apart under a weight everyone insists is a privilege. You had thought the airless feeling was yours alone, a private defect. The book, calmly, in print, sold in paperback in the drugstore rack, informs you that it is not yours alone at all, that it has a shape and a literature and other people living inside it. The friend was Peggy from the corner, who handed it across the phone cord world of your friendship with an odd carefulness, saying only that it had stayed with her and she thought it might stay with you. You started it expecting a diversion, another set of invented people to worry about instead of your own, the way you worry about Vanessa on the soap. But this was not that. This woman on the page was not a diversion from your life. She was a report from inside it, filed by someone who had clearly stood exactly where you stand and found words for the standing. There is an image in it, a bell jar, a glass dome coming down over a person and sealing her inside her own bad air so that she can see the world going on beyond the glass but cannot reach it or breathe its atmosphere. You read that and go very still because it is the truest description you have ever encountered of the specific quality of your worst afternoons, the sense of watching your own life through glass, present at it, sealed out of it. You had never had a word for that. Now there is a whole book built around it, and the book is in your hands, and it knew. You look the author up, quietly, and learn the thing that sits heaviest, which is that she did not survive it. Number. Sylvia Plath, a mother of two, wrote this, and then, not long after, did not make it through her own bell jar, and the book only reached American paperback years later, in 1971, arriving on the drugstore rack at the precise moment a whole generation of women was ready to recognize itself in it. That she died does not read, to you, as a warning to put the book down. It reads as a reason to take it more seriously than anything the kind doctor ever said, because she was not managing a case of nerves. She was drowning, and she said so, exactly. The strangest effect is that a book about coming apart makes you feel, oddly, more held together, and it takes you a while to understand the mechanism. It is not that the story cheers you, it does not. It is bleak and clear and offers no rescue. It is that being accurately described is itself a form of company. For years, the feeling had been not only painful but lonely, a thing you assumed no one else carried and could not have named if they did. The book removes the loneliness from the pain. The pain remains, but it is no longer yours alone in the dark, and that subtraction, it turns out, is enormous. The feeling had been private, silent, and yours. So you finish the book over 3 stolen afternoons, and you do not press it on anyone the careless way it was not pressed on you, because you understand now that it is not a book you lend, it is a book you place, deliberately, in the hands of one specific woman you have watched breathing bad air. It goes on your shelf, spine out, a small dangerous honest thing among the cookbooks. You are not the same reader who opened it. It named the glass, and a thing with a name, you are starting to learn, all across this strange season of your life, is a thing you can finally begin to see the edges of. You have started buying a different magazine, and this one you do not leave out on the kitchen table with the others. It says things plainly that the household is not ready to have said plainly. It treats your ordinary discontent as a subject, rather than a symptom, as something with causes outside your own character. You read it in stolen minutes and you keep it somewhere the way you might keep any private thing, and the keeping of it tells you something about the house you live in, that a set of ideas printed on paper has to be hidden inside it. You bought the first one almost by accident, at the drugstore rack beside the paperbacks, drawn by a cover that did not promise a diet or a cake, and you read it in the car in the parking lot before you could quite bring it home. It was called Miss, a title that itself was an argument, a word that refused to announce whether the woman answering to it was married, a small typographical rebellion you had never considered and could not stop thinking about once you had. The whole magazine was like that word. It took the arrangement you lived inside and, instead of offering to help you cope with it, asked out loud whether it should exist. The difference from the other magazine is total and immediate. The other one told you the hollow feeling was a personal failing to be corrected with effort and products. This one tells you the hollow feeling is a rational response to a set of conditions that a woman sealed alone in a house doing unpaid invisible labor might reasonably feel sealed, unpaid, and invisible, and that the feeling is therefore not a defect in her but information about her situation. Nobody had ever handed you that sentence before. It rearranges something structural in your chest, quietly, the way a key turns, but you hide it, and the hiding is the tell. You slide it under the mattress or into the bottom of your sewing basket, in the specific place a person keeps a thing that would start a conversation she is not ready to have. You are a grown woman concealing a magazine in your own home like contraband, and when you catch yourself doing it, you have to sit down, because the act of hiding it says everything the magazine says and more. If these ideas were harmless, you would leave them on the table. You do not leave them on the table. Some part of you already knows they are not harmless to the shape of the life you are living. You picture Ray finding it, and the picture is not violent. It is worse than violent. It is baffled. After violent. He would not shout. He would hold it up with a puzzled half smile and ask what this was, this women's lib thing, in a tone that already knew it was a phase, a mood, a thing his sensible wife had picked up and would put down. And you would have to decide, in that moment, whether to agree with the tone and make it small, or to say, out loud, in your own kitchen, that you had been reading it because it was the first thing in years that made sense of your own life. You are not ready for that conversation. The mattress is easier. So you keep buying them and keep hiding them, a growing secret library of your own situation stacked in the bottom of the sewing basket under the spools, and you read them in the stolen minutes and put them away before the car comes home. It is a strange way to live, smuggling the truth about your own days into your own house. But you are not ready to stop, and you are not ready to be caught, and you are not ready for the conversation the magazine will eventually make unavoidable. So for now you do the only thing you can, which is read and hide and quietly become a person who can no longer pretend she does not know. You and your husband share a house, a bed, a mortgage, and a growing quantity of silence that only one of you seems to have noticed. He is not cruel. That would almost be easier to point at. He is simply elsewhere, satisfied that the arrangement is working, because from where he stands it is working beautifully. The dinner arrives, the shirts are clean, the children are alive. He reads the surface of the marriage the way the neighbours read the front lawn, and finds it well maintained, and does not think to wonder what it costs to keep it that way. Ray is, by every external measure, a good husband, and this is what makes the loneliness so hard to name that you have mostly stopped trying. He does not drink too much, or raise his hand, or run around, or gamble the paycheck. On paper he is a catch, the kind of husband a magazine would photograph approvingly, and a marriage would quietly suffocate inside of. He goes to work, comes home, mows the lawn in stripes, is kind to the children in the brief window he sees them. There is no crime here, no headline, nothing you could point to and say this is the thing. There is only an absence, a man present in the house and absent from the marriage. An absence is impossible to prosecute. The conversations have thinned to logistics, and you did not notice the thinning until it was nearly complete. You talk about the bills, the schedule, the thing the school needs, the relative who is visiting, an efficient exchange of household information between two competent co-managers of a small enterprise. What you do not talk about is anything underneath that, how the day felt, what you have been reading, the stone you swallowed at the pharmacy, because those conversations require a door that has quietly rusted shut from disuse, and neither of you reaches for the handle anymore. He would be genuinely astonished to learn you are unhappy, and that astonishment is its own specific injury. In his understanding, he has held up every part of the bargain. He earns, he provides, he is faithful and reliable, and in exchange he expected exactly the life he has, a running household and a wife within it, and he cannot see that the bargain he kept so faithfully was one you never quite got to negotiate. He is not withholding love out of malice. He simply believes the arrangement is the love, that providing the house is the same as being in the marriage, and no one ever taught him the difference. You lie beside him at night and listen to him breathe, already asleep, untroubled, a man at peace with a life he finds entirely satisfactory. And you feel the particular loneliness that has no cure in the room, The loneliness of being unknown by the person who knows you best. You could wake him. You have imagined it. The sentence you would say, "Ray, I am not all right." And the imagining always stops there, because you cannot picture the second half, his face, his answer, the machinery of a conversation the marriage has forgotten how to have. So you do not wake him. You let him sleep his good sleep beside your bad one. So the marriage goes on, functional and hollow, a well-run household with two strangers managing it, quiet, tidy, and hollow. And from the street it looks like every other house on the block, which is to say it looks fine. Nobody is leaving. Nobody is fighting. There is nothing to fight about, which is somehow worse than something, because a fight at least assumes two people still want something from each other. You reach over and turn off the lamp, and the room goes dark over the two of you, close enough to touch and further apart than the width of the whole silent subdivision, and you close your eyes and wait for the pill to do the one thing in this house that still reliably answers when you call. You have a name for it now, and having a name changes what you can do with it. For years the feeling had no name, which meant it could only be a flaw in you, a private failure of gratitude in a life that looked, on paper, like an answered prayer. Now you know that other women have the same nameless thing, that it was named in a book that sold 1 million copies, that it is a problem with a history and an address and a growing crowd of people who share it. A thing with a name can be discussed. A thing with a name can be blamed on something other than yourself. The book had been out for a decade before it reached your kitchen, which tells you something about how long it takes an idea to cross a subdivision. Betty Friedan wrote it, and she called the feeling the problem that has no name, and the phrase itself was the gift, because she had understood that the naming was the whole battle. A problem with no name cannot be shared, cannot be organized around, cannot be anything but a solitary defect each woman assumes is hers alone. Name it, and it stops being 1,000 private failures and becomes one public fact. You had done all the private math already, without knowing others were doing it too. You had catalogued your own life, the good husband and the healthy children and the full refrigerator and the appliances that gleamed, and you had held that catalogue up against the flatness inside you, and the two had not balanced, and the not balancing had seemed like proof of something rotten in you. What kind of woman has all this and still feels sealed under glass? A defective one, you had concluded, privately, for years. The book walks into that conclusion and calmly takes it apart, because the book asks the question you had never been allowed to ask, which is not what is wrong with you, but what is wrong with a life that produces this feeling in so many women at once. If one woman feels hollow in the perfect house, that is a woman with a problem. If 1 million women feel identically hollow in 1 million identical perfect houses, that is not 1 million private defects, that is a design, a pattern, the same avocado kitchen stamped down every street like a tray of identical tins. The feeling was never the malfunction. The feeling was the accurate readout of a malfunctioning situation. The relief of this is real, and the anger underneath it is newer and stranger, and you notice it first in your hands, gripping the counter edge while the coffee you poured an hour ago goes cold. For years you had aimed all the blame inward, at your own ingratitude. An inward blame is exhausting, but it is also, in a grim way, comfortable, because it keeps the world intact and only asks you to try harder. The name turns the blame around. It points it outward, at the arrangement, at the sealed house and the vanished car and the invisible labour and the doctor who medicated the situation instead of examining it. And outward blame is frightening because it does not ask you to try harder. It asks you to change something, and changing something means the whole quiet life might not survive it. The name is small, hard, and portable. So you carry the name around now like a small, hard tool in your pocket, and it changes the texture of ordinary days because you can no longer mistake the feeling for a personal weather. It has a source outside you. It has a literature and a movement and a crowd. You are not, it turns out, a defective woman failing to be happy in a good life. You are a woman receiving accurate information about a life that was arranged with the best intentions to require your silence. And a woman who knows that, who has the name and the tool and the crowd, has quietly become dangerous to the arrangement she lives inside. You put on the good outfit and sit across a desk from a man younger than you, answering questions about whether you can handle responsibility, and you do not laugh, though the temptation is real. You have been running a household on a fixed budget with unreliable staff for a decade, but that does not fit in any of the boxes on his form. The money at home no longer stretches the way it used to, and one income has quietly stopped being enough. And so here you are, selling a version of yourself that leaves out everything you have actually been doing. The reason you are here is partly Friedan and partly arithmetic, and the arithmetic is the part you can say out loud at dinner. Prices have gone strange, climbing month over month in a way that makes the old budget a work of fiction, and the single paycheck that comfortably held up the whole house a few years ago now arrives already spoken for, already short. Half the block's wives are doing the same math and reaching the same conclusion, drifting back toward the working world, not as a manifesto, but as a household repair, and the manifesto, when it comes, will arrive disguised as a second income. The form is an insult you absorb quietly, because the form has no language for your decade. It asks for your most recent employment, and there is a gap in it the size of your entire adult life, a blank where the marriage and the children go, as though those years were a sabbatical you took from being a useful person. You cannot write on the line that you have managed logistics, budgets, nutrition, scheduling, conflict resolution, and crisis response continuously, without a day off, for 11 years, because the form does not believe that is work, and neither apparently does the man across the desk who sees only the blank. He asks whether you can handle pressure, and you keep your face still, because the question asked of you is very nearly funny. You have handled a burning casserole and a bleeding child and a mother-in-law's white glove and a checkbook that would not balance, often within the same hour, for years, alone, medicated, without applause. You have more experience of sustained pressure than this young man has of pressure at all. But none of it counts, because none of it was paid. And the whole cruel logic of the arrangement is right there in his innocent question, that labour without a wage was never, in the eyes of his form, labour. And yet you want the job, want it with an intensity that surprises you, and the wanting is not really about the money, though you will call it the money. It is about the desk itself, the badge, the being somewhere by name at a fixed hour, because an institution requires you there. It is about a task that ends, that gets evaluated, that comes with a check that says, in numbers, this was worth something. You have spent a decade doing work that was designed to be invisible, and the job, whatever it is, however small, offers the radical thing your kitchen never could, which is to be seen doing it. But you say yes to all of it, the pressure and the responsibility and the hours, and you sell the young man the tidy, capable and edited version, and you walk out into the parking lot having possibly, maybe, gotten yourself a foothold back in the paid world, and the feeling in your chest is one you have not had in years, and take a moment to identify. It is not happiness, exactly. It is possibility, the sense of a door where a wall used to be, the first faint outline of a version of yourself who exists in numbers, by name, at a desk, worth a wage. You start the car. Whatever this job is, you already know it is going to cost you, and you already know you are going to pay it, gladly, for the thing on the other side. You have a paying job now, and you have discovered that it did not replace the old one so much as get added on top of it. The house did not hear that you started working. The laundry did not adjust its expectations. You come home from one shift to the start of another, and the second shift has no clock out and no paycheck and no acknowledgement that it is a shift at all. Your husband, who is tired from his single job, cannot quite see the second job, because from where he sits it looks the way it has always looked, which is like nothing. The mornings are a marvel of engineering now, because everything that used to fill the whole day has to be compressed into the 90 minutes before you leave. You wake even earlier, which you had not thought possible, and you run the breakfast cafeteria and the lunchbox line, and the getting everyone out at double speed, and then you get yourself out too, into a car and a commute and a work day, and the household machinery you used to tend across 11 hours now has to run untended until you return to it exhausted at 6. Ray's day has one shift in it and yours has 2, and the asymmetry sits in the house like furniture nobody mentions. He comes home from work and the evening is his, to rest, to read the paper, to have earned his ease, and no part of the culture questions that a working man should come home and be off. You come home from work and the evening is a second job, dinner and dishes and baths and the lunches for tomorrow, and the exact same culture that lets him rest expects you to simply continue, because the house is still, in everyone's unspoken accounting, your department, employed or not. You had thought, in some hopeful corner, that the job would make him see it, that a wife with a workplace and a paycheck might finally register as a person carrying a load. It did not work that way. If anything, the job made your home labor more invisible, because now you are tired for a reason he recognizes, a job, a real one, and the tiredness that comes after, the second shift tiredness, gets folded into the first and disappears. He sees a working wife who is a little worn out from work. He does not see a woman doing two jobs where he does one, because he has never once had to. Nobody helps in any way that lasts, and the not helping is so normal it barely reads as a decision. He will, if directly asked, dry a dish, and he will do it with the faint air of a man performing a favour, an extra, a kindness above and beyond, and the framing itself is the whole problem in a nutshell. The dishes are not his to help with, in his understanding. They are yours, and he is generously assisting, and a task you can be generously assisted with is a task that was assigned to you from the start, employment or no employment, exhaustion or no exhaustion. So you finish the last lunch and wipe the last counter and turn off the last light and climb the stairs to the few hours of sleep before you do the whole doubled thing again, and you are too tired now even for the old flatness, which is almost a mercy. The evening is long, doubled, and thankless. The job gave you the desk and the check and the being seen you wanted, and all of that is real and you would not give it back. It simply came at a price nobody quoted you, the price of a second unpaid shift stacked invisibly on the first, and you are paying it nightly, in the one currency you never seem to have enough of, which is yourself. You have run this household's finances for years without ever once having money that belonged to you. There is his salary, and there is the housekeeping allowance, and there is a careful accounting of both, and nowhere in the ledger is a line for you that does not have to be justified to someone. Asking for money to buy a thing means explaining the thing, and explaining the thing means it is not really yours. It is a request that was granted. The Tupperware money you earned on the side felt different, and you understood, holding it, exactly why it felt different. The allowance is the strange heart of it, a word that sounds generous and is actually a leash. Each week the money arrives as a small stack of bills counted out on the kitchen counter for the groceries and the sundries and the small needs of the children, and you administer it with total competence and complete unfreedom, because every dollar in it is earmarked, counted, and accountable. You are trusted with the money the way a manager is trusted with a budget, to spend on the enterprise, never on yourself, and the distinction between managing money and having money is one you feel in your body every time you want a small thing and have to decide whether it is worth the conversation. The conversation is the tax on everything you might want for yourself. A new dress, a book that is not for a child, a lunch out with Peggy, any expense that is plainly and only for you, has to be raised, explained, and in some sense approved, and the raising of it is so tiring that mostly you simply do without. It is not that Ray would refuse. He is not a miser and would likely say yes. It is that having to ask at all turns every small pleasure into a petition, and a woman who must petition for a dress has been quietly informed, over and over, that her wants are line items requiring authorization. You are, on paper, the household's chief financial officer, and you do not own a cent of what you manage. You know the exact balance of accounts you cannot spend from freely. You have kept this family solvent through inflation and emergencies with a skill no one acknowledges, moving money, stretching it, hiding a little away for the boiler that will inevitably die, and all of that expertise sits on top of the flat fact that the money is his, earned in his name, and you are its steward, not its owner, a distinction that no amount of your competence has ever been allowed to blur, which is why the Tupperware money and now the paycheck feel like something close to holy. The first folding bills you earned at Dot's parties, small and irregular, went into your own pocket and answered to no ledger, and holding them you felt a thing you had almost forgotten, the plain animal fact of money that is yours, unearmarked, unaccountable, spendable on a whim you owe no one an explanation for. It was not much. It did not need to be much. What it was free, and you had not held anything free in a very long time. So you open your own account, a small act that feels enormous, a bank book with your own name on it and a balance that is nobody's business but yours, and you look at it the way you looked at the folding bills from the parties, with a disbelief that has joy under it. It is not disloyalty. You tell yourself that, and it is even true. It is only that for the first time in your married life there is a small territory of money that is entirely, unaccountably yours, and standing on that small territory you can see, more clearly than any book or magazine ever showed you, exactly how large and unfree the rest of the house has been all along. You are sitting in a lawyer's office asking a question that, a few years ago, you could not have asked without a scandal attached, and the lawyer answers it as though it were ordinary, because now it is. The law has quietly changed underneath your whole marriage. You no longer have to prove that anyone did anything monstrous. You no longer need his cooperation or his signature or his permission. There is simply a form now, and a phrase about differences that cannot be reconciled, and a door where a wall used to be, and you are standing in front of it deciding whether to walk through. You are not even sure you want the divorce, and that is not why you came. You came because you needed to know the door existed, needed to see it with your own eyes, because a person who knows there is an exit lives differently inside a room than a person who believes the room is sealed. For years, the marriage had felt like a locked house you were simply inside of, permanent by custom and by the sheer unthinkability of leaving. You came to the lawyer to find out whether the unthinkable had become, quietly, merely difficult, which is an entirely different category. The lawyer, Mr. Ash, slides a single sheet of paper across the desk with 2 fingers, matter of fact in a way you find enormously steadying, because he has clearly had this conversation with a great many women lately, and treats it as neither a tragedy nor a rebellion but as a legal procedure with knowable steps. He explains the new law without drama. It used to be, he says, that you had to prove a wrong, adultery, cruelty and abandonment, had to stand up and accuse, publicly, with evidence, and most women simply could not or would not, and so they stayed. Now, he says, you need only say the marriage is broken, and no one can stop you, and he says it the way he might explain a change to the tax code. You think about the pill on the drive to the lawyer, and again on the drive home, because you see now that they were 2 answers to the same trapped feeling. The pill was the answer for a woman with no exit, a way to make a locked room bearable. The door is the answer for a woman who has one, and right now the door is a single sheet of paper on Mr. Ash's desk, still faintly warm from the copier. For years you had only the pill, because the door did not legally exist. The door existing does not mean you walk through it. It means, for the first time, that staying is a choice instead of a sentence. And that changes staying itself, whether or not you ever leave, which is the part you had not expected. A marriage you cannot leave and a marriage you choose to stay in look identical from the street and feel nothing alike from inside. The door in the wall reaches back into every ordinary evening and quietly alters it, because now when you set the table and pack the lunch and lie down beside the sleeping stranger, you are doing it as someone who could go and is choosing not to, at least not today, and choosing as a thing a sentence never let you do. So you thank Mr. Ash and you do not sign anything, not today, and you walk out with no divorce and something almost more important, which is the knowledge of the door, carried home like the name and the paycheck, another tool in the pocket. You may use it, and you may not. You genuinely do not know yet, but you will never again live in the house believing it is locked, and that alone rearranges the whole architecture of your days, because the thing that had made the flatness unbearable was never only the flatness, it was believing there was no other room. There is another room now, and knowing it, you drive home a different woman than the one who drove out. You come into your own living room and everyone you love is already sitting in it, and none of them will look away, and you understand in the first half second that this is not a party. Your friends are here. Your family is here. Someone has a piece of paper they are going to read from. They have come to say the thing to your face that they have apparently been saying to each other, and the thing is about the bottles and the glasses, and the person you have slowly become while insisting nothing was wrong. There is no polite way out of the room. The word for this is new, so new that most of the people in the circle would struggle to define it. An intervention, a thing you have vaguely heard of and never imagined pointed at you. Someone learned how to do this, read about it, called the others, coordinated the terrible loving ambush now unfolding in the room where you fold the laundry. Someone has made a pot of coffee, and no one is drinking it. Peggy is here, and your sister, the one who asked years ago if you were sleeping all right, and Linda from the circle, and they have arranged themselves between you and the easy exits with a gentleness that is somehow worse than force. Your sister reads first, from her paper, because her hands are shaking too hard to speak without it. And what she reads is not an accusation. It is a list of moments. The afternoon she called and you did not remember the call the next day. The birthday you were present for and absent from at once. The specific faraway look she named years ago and let go, and has watched deepen since. She reads the moments plainly, one after another, no diagnosis, no blame, just the small accumulated evidence of a woman disappearing inside her own competent life, and the plainness of it is what gets past your guard. Every instinct you have is to manage the room, because managing rooms is your one great skill, and you reach for the old tools automatically. The reassuring smile, the "it's not as bad as that," the deflection, the joke, the brisk change of subject, the whole practiced apparatus you have used for years to keep every surface calm and every guest comfortable and every difficult thing safely unsaid. And for the first time in your life, the tools do not work, because the people in this room built the ambush specifically to survive them, and they simply wait out your smile and hold the silence and let the smile die on your face with nowhere to go. The thing that finally cracks you is not the evidence, it is the love in it, which you had not braced for. They came because they are frightened, plainly, visibly frightened of losing you, and they have overcome an enormous social taboo and sat in a circle and made themselves this uncomfortable for one reason only, which is that they want you to still be here in a year. Judgment you could have fought all afternoon. This you cannot fight, because there is nothing to push against, only a room full of people who love you refusing, finally, to keep pretending along with you. The room stays loving, frightened, and immovable. So you stop managing the room, which is the hardest thing you have ever done, because it means setting down the smile that has been your armor and your job for so long that you are not sure who is underneath it. You set it down. You let the tears come, the real ones, unmanaged, in front of people, and the room does not end, and the sky does not fall, and somebody, mercifully, finally drinks the coffee, and Peggy is beside you before you have finished, and the paper your sister was reading from drops to the floor. It's work done. Nobody claps. It is not that kind of room, but something that had been falling for years finally, in the arms of the people who refuse to look away, stops. You turn on the news and hear your own medicine cabinet discussed as a national emergency, which is a strange thing to have for company. A former First Lady has said, on the record, that she took the same little pills you take, 3 times a day, and drank besides. The Senate is holding hearings. Doctors are testifying that they cannot get people off the drugs they so cheerfully prescribed that some of them cannot get off it themselves. The private thing you were quietly managing alone in the kitchen turns out to have been happening all along in millions of other kitchens. Betty Ford is the one who breaks it open, and she does it the way she seems to do everything, plainly and without shame, standing up in front of the whole country to say that she, the wife of a president, was dependent on the same pills and the same afternoons that you thought were your secret alone. You watch her say it, and you sit down slowly on the arm of the couch, dish towel still in hand. If it can be her, if it can be the woman in the White House with the staff and the doctors and the entire nation watching, then it was never a moral weakness in you, never a failure of character in a defective suburban wife. It was a drug, doing to a First Lady exactly what it did to you. The hearings put numbers to the thing, and the numbers are staggering. This is not a scattering of weak women. This is the single most prescribed drug in the entire country, tens of millions of prescriptions a year, written overwhelmingly to women, an epidemic hiding in plain sight behind a million calm suburban front lawns. Your private shame, it turns out, was a demographic. The television, in its flat anchorman voice, informs you that you were one of a multitude, that the loneliness itself had been a symptom, that a whole generation of women had been kept apart in the identical silence. The doctors who testify are the part that lands hardest, because they say, out loud, in the Senate, the thing your kind Dr. Prentice never said in his office. They admit the drug creates dependence. They admit they prescribed it for years without grasping that, handed it out for nerves, sleeplessness, and ordinary unhappiness, renewed it endlessly without asking the question the whole system was built not to ask. Some of them admit they got hooked on the free samples the company mailed to their own offices. The men who wrote the prescriptions are confessing, on the record, that they did not understand what they were writing, and you sit in your living room absorbing the fact that no one, at any point, ever did. Senator Kennedy runs the hearings and says the phrase that will stick, that these drugs have produced a nightmare of dependence, and hearing a senator say nightmare about the ordinary yellow pill in your cabinet does something complicated to you. There is vindication in it, real and warm. The trouble was in the pill, not in you. And there is a slower, colder feeling underneath the vindication, because if they are only now, in a Senate chamber, discovering what this does to a person, then it was being discovered on you in real time across all those smooth, easy years of refills. A national experiment nobody told the subjects they were part of. So you sit in the glow of the television while the anchorman moves on to the weather, and you feel the ground shift under your whole understanding of the last decade of your life. You were not falling apart because you were weak. You were falling apart because you had been quietly, cheerfully, and at enormous scale handed a thing designed to make an unbearable situation bearable, and then left, with everyone else, to come apart from it alone. The news said it out loud tonight. It cannot be unsaid now. And a country that has finally said a thing out loud is a country that has, at last, no choice but to begin to change it. You are in a room with other people who are also starting over, and the coffee is bad, and you are more comfortable here than you expected to be. Nobody in the circle is performing a well-maintained lawn. The rule of the room is that you say the true thing, the way the women in that first living room did, except now, the true thing is larger and harder and has a chemistry attached to it. You take it a day at a time, because a day is a size you can actually hold, and holding one day and then the next is, it turns out, the whole method. The coming off is not gentle, and no one in the room pretends otherwise, which is the first honest thing anyone has told you about the pill since the very first bottle. It has to be done slowly, tapered, the dose stepped down over weeks so the body can relearn how to make its own calm, and even done right it is hard, the anxiety surging back in waves. But it is being done with help now, with people who know the map, instead of the way you tried it once alone on an ordinary morning and got dragged straight back. The difference is not willpower, the difference is company. Betty Ford, you learn, did not just get well quietly and disappear. She built a place, put her own name on a door, so that other people could sit in rooms exactly like this one and be helped the way she was helped. The woman who let them stage the intervention and then told the whole country about it turned her own falling apart into a doorway for other people. And there is something in that you turn over often. On the drive to the meetings, the idea that the worst season of a life might be made, later, into a use. A thing that helps the next woman instead of a thing that simply happened to you. You notice, slowly, the things the pill had been quietly taking that you had stopped missing because you had forgotten they were gone. The sharp edges of a genuinely good moment, the full weight of Cindy's laugh, undamped, the plain animal pleasure of a cold morning that arrives at full volume instead of wrapped in a towel. The pill had smoothed the bad afternoons down, yes, but it had smoothed everything else down with them, indiscriminately, and coming off it you get the whole range back, the lows sharper but the highs sharper too, and you had genuinely forgotten that a day could have a high sharp enough to catch in your throat. It is not a cure, and the room is very clear about that. There is no morning you are simply finished. It is a practice, a thing you keep doing, a day you keep taking one at a time, maybe always. But a practice is a thing you can actually do. Unlike the impossible standards of the magazine and the numbered rescue of the self-help book, and there is a plain dignity in the daily doing of it that none of those glossy total transformations ever offered. You are not being remade into the impossible woman of the magazine. You are just, most mornings, a little more able to taste the coffee. So you keep coming to the room with the bad coffee and the honest circle, week after week, and you get a little more yourself back each time. Not the smoothed down managed surface, but the actual woman underneath it. The one who was walled away so long ago you had half forgotten she was in there. The other people in the circle are getting themselves back too, in their own weeks, at their own pace, and there is a quiet fellowship in that, a room full of people coming back to themselves together. Nobody's lawn is mentioned, nobody performs. You drink the bad coffee and you say the true thing, and you take the next day, and the taking, day after day, is slowly adding back up into a life. You are awake early again, but the early is different now, because for the first time in a long while it belongs to you before it belongs to the house. The percolator still runs, the list of the day still exists, but the low hum you spent a decade medicating has become something you are allowed to simply feel, and feeling it, you have discovered, does not actually kill you, which is more than the pills could honestly say. You stand in the grey light with the coffee, at the start of a day you are going to be present for, and you begin. Nothing about the kitchen has changed, and that is somehow the most surprising part. The same counter, the same window, the same percolator muttering in the same corner. You had half expected that getting well would require a new life, a different house, a dramatic before and after, and instead here you are in the identical room, doing the identical morning, and the whole difference is on the inside, in the fact that you are actually here in it, rather than watching it through glass. The bell jar lifted, and underneath it was not a new world. It was this one, at full volume, waiting. The kitchen looked plain, ordinary, and unchanged. You still take the pill some mornings, a smaller dose, a careful one, and you have made a truce with that instead of a war, because the room taught you that recovery is not a purity contest, and Betty Ford did not get well by being perfect. Some days are harder, and you use what helps, and you do not hate yourself for it. The difference is that the pill is a tool in your hand now, not a wall around your life, something you reach for on purpose and set down again, rather than a thing you organized an entire decade around without ever choosing it. You are holding it. It is no longer holding you. The house is the same and Ray is mostly the same, and you have not decided, finally, about the door in the wall, and you have made peace with not having decided. Some evenings the marriage feels workable, a thing two tired people might yet learn to actually inhabit. Some evenings it feels like a room you are choosing to stay in, only until the children are grown. You do not know which it will turn out to be, and the not knowing no longer terrifies you, because you are living it now as a woman who could leave and is choosing, day by day, not to, and the choosing feels nothing at all like the trap it replaced. The children are older, and Cindy watches you differently than she once did, and you have thought a great deal about what she is learning by watching. She saw the faraway years, and she has seen the coming back, and you hope, more than you hope almost anything, that what lodges in her is the second part, the part where she stopped disappearing and turned herself around, on purpose, with help. You would like her to grow up believing that a life can be examined and changed and not merely endured, because that is the one thing the whole long season taught you that you actually want to hand down. So you stand in your own kitchen in the grey light, present, at full volume, at the start of an ordinary day you are going to actually live, and you drink the coffee while it is hot enough to feel, and the small fact of feeling it is not nothing is in fact almost everything. The house will fill in an hour with noise and demand, and the whole exhausting beloved machinery of it, but right now it is quiet, and you are here for the quiet, awake inside your own life at last. A woman who was quietly falling apart, and who, just as quietly, with help and time and a great deal of bad coffee, put herself back together. The percolator clicks, the day begins. You are in it. So there you have it. You spent the night rising before the sun to fake a self-cleaning house, running a cafeteria for ungrateful citizens, stranded in a subdivision engineered with no way out, medicated by a kind man with a fast pen, and cheerfully sold a little yellow pill filed on the shelf right between the aspirin and the vanilla. You waged war on fingerprints. You greeted a distracted man at the door in fresh lipstick nobody saw. You hid a magazine under the mattress like contraband and did the household's accounting without owning a cent of it. And underneath all the wax and the casseroles and the careful 4 o'clock erasing, there were real women on real silent streets, carrying a weight the whole culture had agreed not to see. They were not weak and they were not defective. They were handed a beautiful sealed life and a bottle to make the seal bearable, and an astonishing number of them held that arrangement together with their bare hands for years, quietly, without applause, until the naming finally came. Some of them got the room with the bad coffee in time. Some of them got the door in the wall and a paycheck, and a sister with shaking hands who refused to look away. It took a first lady saying the plain thing out loud, and a Senate finally listening, for the private secret to become a public one. That it came late does not make it small. It came in the end for a great many of them, one honest sentence at a time. Thank you for staying with me through all of it, through the pharmacy and the percolator and the long flat middle of the day. You have made it to the quiet part now, the part that belongs to you. So let the day fade, let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Let the covers settle, and let your breathing go slow and even, and let the whole managed surface of the day loosen and slide off, because there is nothing left tonight that needs keeping up. You have earned this rest. Sleep well,